announcing the next revolution. Its name is automation. Its agent is the machine which can think for man and act for man. The servant that is so versatile and so powerful as to become master. Now, suddenly we hear of people disadvantaged and displaced.
There's going to be hundreds of millions of people laid off, people who don't know what kind of jobs to get, don't know what they want, and they're basically going to be relying on things like universal basic income, other government benefits to make up for wages they don't have as they try to fit into a society that, frankly, doesn't need any of us except on the level of consumers. And it's just kind of creepy. So basically, I started this video while trying not to be in the way of my spouse for like the 15th time in the last hour, trying to make some food for the family and look over all my email and social media contacts and get distracted by other side things that are going on while trying to dig into really what's at the heart of the future of work. And I was there at the grocery store when I first saw this. And I realized I wasn't just there for food supplies and resources, but for the last remnants of human contact that are left, essential shopping. And I'm staring at this Time Magazine special edition on the future of work. Where do we go from here? And I wouldn't really single them out all that much, but the whole idea behind it is as if they thought up this phrase and as if their own journalistic integrity brought them to this important issue, considering how much this affects everyone, you, me, everyone. I did think it was worth pointing out that this is the very opposite of they just came up with this phrase, the future of work. This is the buzz phrase that has been workshopped and handed down hierarchically. I don't think I need to tell anyone that the World Economic Forum has just been all over these related issues. But they themselves put out a Future of Jobs report for 2020. They have their own Center for the New Economy and Society. And this particular term, the future of work, has become an official buzzword for commissions and studies in various states, California, Massachusetts among them, I think Utah and a few others. And I remember, too, that it was a topic back in 2018, several years back, before the pandemic, of the very secretive Bill.
I'm sorry, that's the wrong answer.
They were meeting in Turin, Italy, June 7th through 10. And while they were talking about artificial intelligence, the inequality challenge, populism in Europe, free trade, quantum computing, and a weird topic called the post-truth world, they also floated the future of work. And so there in Turin, Italy, where industrialists and titans of Silicon Valley, bankers whose family have been in charge of running various things for generations, amongst all these important politicians and quite a few media people,
Morgan,
a lot of editors of major papers, including the Financial Times. Amongst all these people, you have in 2018 Benjamin Pring, the co-founder and director of the Center for the Future of Work, which is another...
Benjamin Pring. Oh, yes. So there are all these people running the world and basically looking at us as useless eaters. But the only real thing we have is the consumption, because if we don't consume, their value goes down. So that's where it is. So let's see. We're going to have another guest speaker. Let's see. There we go. There we go. Let's see if he answers the phone. This is our friend Kevin. He's a audio producer, musician, very interesting guy.
Hi, we're not up right now. Please leave a message and we'll give you a call back as soon as we can. Thanks. Have a great day. Bye.
At the tone, please record your message. When you have finished recording, simply hang up or press pound for further options.
Hey there, Kev. Love your robot voice there. I am live on the Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Bob. And I'm calling to see if you want to be a guest. And, you know, you're a great theologian and thinker and a futurist. And that's all I want to talk to you about, right? Nothing else. And so, and your opinions on all the above, especially I'm looking on this show, the future of work, right? And you might bring out your I Ching, and we could throw some I Ching about questions because the cadre is here, and they could ask a question, and we could throw the I Ching. So, okay, if you can call back, I will just babble here for a while, see what the gang wants to talk about, and I will wait for you. Let's see. Right now, it is almost 8 p.m. So where you are, it's a couple hours earlier. I don't know, having dinner or whatever. But anyway, give a buzz. And the last time you buzzed, I couldn't quite pick up. But I will, even if I'm talking to someone else on the phone, I will put them on, just to pick you up. So
you have reached the maximum time allowed to make your recording. To review, re-record, or add to your message, press 1. To mark your message urgent, press 2. To mark your message private, press 3. To send your message as is, press pound.
Urgent.
To review, re-record, or add to your message marked urgent. To review, your message has been sent.
Okay.
Thank you for using Frontier Enhanced Messaging.
Ooh.
Bye.
Frontier Enhanced Messaging. Well, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with your Sensei Bob. Don't believe a word I say. I'm just your griot here to tell you stories. I hope you enjoyed our earlier afternoon show. It seemed like a bunch showed up for the day. And we talked about lots of interesting things. And your chat spurred me on. So thanks for spurring me on. So Lynn and Jamie, what do you got to say to spur me on? Jamie, what country are you in? You're like in England or Scotland or Australia, New Zealand. Where are you? And Lynn, what are you in? You in Canada or Midwest, someplace? Who knows? And if you don't want to give that information over the universe here, again, anybody wants to talk to me can get me at the dudewake42 at dudewake42 at gmail. Dudewake42 at gmail. And my little insight, is that we are going to have some. We already have had severe disruption. We had Obama, who wasn't what he said he was, right? He was more the same, and he doubled down. He killed more people in the Mideast than George and Dick did, And I never understood why people named Richard call themselves Dick, unless they are a big dick, And you look at all the Dicks. There was Dick Nixon, Dick Armey, and a lot of other dicks all through history, Dick the Lion-Hearted. Let's see. Message retracted. Lynn, you didn't even put it up and you retracted it. Now what's the? I'm okay without the accent as I moved here later. Okay, that's good. And that's the beauty of the chat. It's all in code. It's like the Bible. And I love people's accents, My accent is that of a turtle underwater. This is how turtles underwater sound, the way I talk. Mama. 11 minutes, 11 seconds. Another good time. Jamie, what do you got to say, buddy? About the future of work? Or how about that other interesting topic, Davo, the future of man? Davo world. Davo man. I love Davo man. Billionaires that fleece everyone under the worst conditions and then want us to praise them for what great heroes they are. Really, you got to be kidding me. Do 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 boop 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 boo doo doo. Ba 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 boo. Let's see. Boop 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 boo. Boop boo. Let's Davo man. Huh? Mysteries. What goods do we believe in? Davo man, there we go.
The World Economic Forum is wrapping up today. Many of the world's wealthiest people and leaders have been gathering virtually this week for the annual event that normally takes place in Davos, Switzerland. The forum was held online for the second consecutive year due to the pandemic. Earlier this week, Dr. Michael Ryan of the World Health Organization warned participants of the growing vaccine inequity crisis.
If we look at the population of the world, in total, over half of the world's population has received 2 doses of vaccine. But if we look at in Africa and our African regional office states, only 7%. So the reality is that the world is moving towards.
Is that because they're black people?
You're leaving huge swathes of the world behind.
And the Davo meeting will be on computer from now on. They don't want to go to those countries and be photographed by.
What we have seen over the last 2 years is really total collapse of global cooperation and solidarity. Period. I think there's absolutely no reason why a continent of Africa should be lagging behind with having 7% of the population.
Because they're one of the largest producers of vaccines, India and Africa.
It's totally unacceptable.
This comes as Oxfam reports the world's 10 richest men saw their wealth doubled during the pandemic from $700 billion to $1.5 trillion, while the incomes of 99% of the world's population dropped. Oxfam declared widening economic, gender, and racial inequalities, as well as the inequality that exists between countries, are tearing our world apart. Unquote. This has led to growing calls
That's
for
what you want to do, disruption, when you want to bring on a new world order.
World Economic Forum. We're joined by New York Times correspondent Peter Goodman, author of the new book, Davos Man, How the Billionaires Devoured the World. Talk about what inspired this book, Peter, and talk about who is in Davos and the effect that they have on the world.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for having me. So what inspired the book is the reality that, as you quite correctly report, we're in the middle of a global emergency. And it's an emergency, I'm of course referring to the pandemic, that has been extended, worsened, intensified by the reality that a handful of people, the billionaire class, the people I refer to in the book as Davos Man, which comes from attendees of the World Economic Forum, this glittering gathering of the most powerful, wealthy people on earth. These are the people who have rigged our system so that most of the wealth flows in their direction at the direct expense of everyone else. And I think
ain't nothing
vaccines
new.
are a perfect
Louis
example.
XIV.
It's well and good that in Davos, they're talking about vaccine inequity, just like they talk about climate change and gender imbalance and systematic racism and voting rights and all sorts of other super important issues about which they not only do very little, they put out some great reports, but then they go home, these participants, and they commence the battle to protect their privileges, to prevent actual redistribution of wealth. The forum convenes under the mantra committed to improving the state of the world, which is a handy phrase that connotes change. These are the ultimate beneficiaries of the status quo. And if you look at the fact that we have frontline medical workers going to treat COVID patients in places like South Asia and Africa while we're boosting children in the United States, that sort of tells you everything we need to know, because we've accepted one of the key talking points of Davos Man, that we either affirm the system we've got, where pharmaceutical executives get to sell their vaccines to the highest bidder, they monopolize the gains of publicly financed research for their own benefit, and the result is this gaping, lopsided distribution that is not only a humanitarian catastrophe, it's a catastrophe even for people in wealthy countries, because it's an open invitation to the Omicron variant. We are paying the monopoly royalties for vaccines to companies like Pfizer through our closed schools and disruption to our children's education, through death, fear, and hits to economic livelihood. That's why I wrote the book.
So why don't you lay out who these men are?
Well, so my book focuses on 5 key Davos men, but I could have picked, 20 others and would have ended up with the same story. I focus on Mark Benioff, who's the CEO of Salesforce, the Silicon Valley software company. He's actually a member of the board of trustees at Davos, and he really encapsulates the Davos man view. He said last year, at the last time they convened virtually at the forum, that CEOs are the real heroes of the pandemic. Not, mind you, frontline medical workers, CEOs, because they gave us vaccines, because financiers kept credit flowing, preventing bankruptcies. He talks about how he personally pulls strings in China to locate 50 million pieces of PPE, face masks, hand sanitizer, medical gowns, and he distributes them to frontline medical workers in the U.S. Well, that's good. That probably actually saved people's lives. But it's fair to ask, why are we dependent upon a tech bro in Silicon Valley, in the richest, most powerful country on earth, to outfit our frontline medical workers? And part of the explanation is that people like Mark Benioff, who does give to philanthropic pursuits, who kicked in $10 million of his own money to fund a ballot initiative in San Francisco to increase services for homeless people. His company, Salesforce, has paid the modest sum of $0 in federal taxes a couple of times on billions in revenue. And that makes everything else a rounding error. How are we supposed to deal with homelessness, with the lack of affordable housing? How do we pay for the infrastructure that allows entrepreneurs like Mark Benioff to run their companies if people don't pay their taxes?
Let me go to Mark Benioff.
Okay, so there you go. Oh. What do you guys say? Oklahoma. Oh, okay. So again, Lynn, I don't know if you have or haven't, but give me, get a hold of me at dudeawake42@gmail and leave your number and we can talk. Because I need someone to wrench the show as I do it, because I don't know what I'm doing. And I like to have like you and Jamie and Anthony and Lana and there are a few more, maybe Fish. So if a bunch of you had the wrench, then if none of you, if you didn't show up, somebody would, right? So, and also, I instead of us being like Davos man, let us put our heads together and think about what we can do in our own little neighborhoods, right? And we don't need, private jets to go from here to there. We can just talk here. We can talk on WhatsApp or this. And Lana signed me up on another point to point. And meaning all we have to do is start creating community in our community and things will change, right? That's, what happened with me. And I lived in at least 40 different communities where I stayed, where I wasn't just a tourist. I stayed there and affected change. And even just my little presence, I didn't have to spend years, made a big difference. And all I was doing was whatever I was doing there, I was doing my best, right? And that people saw that and they said, "Well, this guy is happy and he's doing something good and interesting. And he's actually making a living at it, and maybe I should try that." And earlier this afternoon, one of my phone guests was a young man that I've known forever, the last 20 years. And I knew him when he was a kid, and his dad was like a, celebrity within the Black community. He was a person that people, because he could speak well, and his father was a big time minister, that he was expected to like step up and lead the community. And he, stepped into that because he liked talking in front of a crowd. But over the years, he never quite stepped up enough because either was scared to. Like one time we were at a meeting and there was a real vacuum it was right after the Occupy movement kind of collapsed. And it was, maybe 4 or 5 months, 6 months after. And it was, early spring, like Marchish. So it's still cold. And I was still, in a bad way. I was still using a walker to get around, and my legs were still in little clamps. And I had known this guy a long time, and I had done a number of things. And we had done a thing by getting people jobs and helping other entities. And he had worked for all the usual suspects. He had worked for TAP, Total Action Plan, and had Homeless Action Team. And, he got his little paycheck. He really didn't go anywhere with it, right? And he was always trying to make the big score. He worked for some realtors out in, Charlotte. And, he never, and then, he had all kinds of side gigs. But what his real calling was, what he should have done, because, a number of years ago, some guy went nuts and shot a bunch of people. And two of the people who died, or two people who died, they were this news reporter girl and her cameraman who was shooting something, and this guy came to shoot up that something they were shooting. And, people scattered once he started shooting, but the guy with the camera and the, girl with the microphone were the dutiful, reporters, and they kind of turned towards him and he shot him dead right live on camera. It was pretty freaking amazing. So, it went out, on the, noon news. They were doing this thing for the noon news, live report. And, he shot them live on television. And now they should have put down a camera and ran, or turned the camera and kept it on the tripod and ran, but they were like going to interview him. And he just blew them away in the most graphic of ways, live on TV. And the ratings for that channel went through the roof. So they milked it for everything it was. So they had a big candlelight ceremony. And the two people who got shot were African American. And, the power elite said, "Oh, that's okay. No big deal." And the guy who shot him, I think it might have been, I really can't say what color, race was, right? He was a human being. I knew that. And, so when that candlelight ceremony came up, this guy gets up and gives an unbelievable Martin Luther King, not Martin, not ripping Martin Luther King up, but that kind of speaking. This guy, he had it in him to do it. He really did. His dad was a big time, had a big church, Methodist church, and, he was schooled to be that. And he was, everyone expected him to be the big, African American leader guy. Anyway, so he makes this amazing speech, blah, 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 blah. And everyone's crying. And then, he's perfect timing, turns around, bows his head, wipes away the tear, and steps off the stage. And then the governor gets up, right? And this guy didn't introduce the governor. He upstaged the governor. So within the context of that, he was ready to be governor, right? It's pretty much straight up, that's what it was, Whether he intended it or it was just fate, that's what happened, right? So the elections were coming up. This was early spring, and, November was coming up. And so there were, state election, all kinds of elections. Mayor was up for grabs. This was up for grabs. And he and a bunch of us, and I was part of that bunch. And I was the strategist guy who always, Mark Powell and I were the two strategist guys. And I always had, I'd been at it here long enough that everyone got over me just looking like the way I looked. But what I did blew everyone's mind. So I constantly did things like that. Like the Tea Party started here in Roanoke and the surrounding counties, just demographic. Like I said, Roanoke is the microcosm of America. And I started seeing people being on the sides of highways with signs and da-da-da-da. And it was like before, Occupy, the Tea Party was like before they were the Tea Party. The Tea Party was the Occupy before Occupy. But it was a very conservative Republican, And Roanoke was a very conservative place. It was when Brown came off. There was a guy, the whatchamacallits, the oil guys, the Koch brothers, and their daddy. This was their little trial pen, and there was a guy who was an economist, actually got a Nobel Prize for economy, and he taught at the university, over in the city in Virginia, where they had the big riot, and the girl got run over by the guy, and and all these things are kind of out of context temporally because they are, meaning they are. There is no linear world. Everything kind of is just going on like this, right? And you can pick and choose and pick and choose and pick and choose and put it together and kind of get what you want from history. And that's kind of his story that goes down. Like a guy like me, though, I look at all of those things and I look at the threads and I try to weave a tapestry, right? And that's what I used to get paid pretty good at. And then I got really sick. And when I got better 6 years later and took up my black book. And so that was a discipline, a skill set. That was a multiple, disciplined skill set, right? There weren't too many who could do what I did. Anyway, I called up my clientele and they all said, "Oh, sorry, Al, we thought you were dead," So we moved on and we found these people who have apps that do what you do. I said, "What?" "Oh, no one." And they said, "Well, it's true. No one could replace you with an app, but the app they have is really good because we put in all the data of the disagreement, push the button, and it spins out a thing that everyone can settle for." Now, you were quite amazing because what you would do is take all that information and weave a tapestry that then would hold the people together and they could go forth in their business and they would not have that problem ever again. But using the app settles the issue, but never takes care of the problem like you did. So 6 months later, they have another agreement that we then have to negotiate using the app, and we can make so much more money. And I said, but if you do that, at some point, the stress of that will cause their business and yours to collapse. And then you'll be without any business. Well, that's okay. Right now, we're making a lot of money, a lot more than when we used you. Yeah, but when you used me, I pretty much settled the fact that you would be around for a long time. And they said, well, we don't really care. What about all those thousands of people who work in your company? Well, we don't really care about them. So this is the Davos mentality, right? And back to our hero, the African man, the American African man. So he made that speech. These elections were coming up. This group of the usual suspects who kind of did all the other kind of useless demonstrations that pretty much Occupy was. Now, Occupy was quite the interesting thing. If people had stayed with the dynamic that was going on in Sakarzi Park, it would have really had an effect. The rich folk were scared shitless about Occupy. So what did they do? They put in what I call Stalinist obstructionists into all these organizations that would break them up. Even though the process that was developed was one that was pretty unbreakable because there was no single leader. Everyone was the leader. Everyone was responsible, which gave everyone a rush of, wow, this is amazing. This is something bigger than me, and I'm the biggest guy. Whatever I see that needs to be done, I go do it. It's like, wow, which is what is needed to be done for the world to heal itself. You can't just have heroes like Elon Musk or Faceless Faceboy or micro penis. What's his name? Billy Boy, and Anthony Foreskin. These people will not save the day. They're the people causing the problem. Now, a guy named David Icke has written lots of books and spoken to a great deal of what it is, and people like Joseph P. Farrell, who I heard that he died. I knew he was sick. I knew he had been, energetically attacked and ended up in the hospital. And I thought he was getting better, but someone told me he had passed over. Now, he wrote, you should go read all his books. He was the amazing scholar. He really was. And he was loads of fun. He was just the funnest guy to hang out with. And he just didn't care. He went, I don't know if I copied his style or, no, I think he copied mine. Funny hats. The one thing he did that was totally nuts, he was a chain smoker. He was a total, smoke one, take that out, put another one in, and light it with it. He was just totally, just either Jane. And so this young, middle-aged black man had the world. He could have picked. He could have been governor. He could have been mayor. He could have been senator. He could have been lots of things because he did this, and it was seen all across the state, and everyone said, "Whoa!" Right? So he didn't do anything after that. I went to him. He stepped off that thing, and me and Mark Powell were there, and we went over him and said, "Listen, buddy, this is it. Let's start planning for you to be governor." Because, like I said, he instead of introducing the governor, he stepped up. No one stepped up to introduce the governor, so he stepped there and gave the speech that everyone was crying and clapping, and he walked off. And then the governor came on and just went humming. Yep. So because the governor was white, and the crowd was white and black. But he made them realize that it wasn't a black thing. It was a, class thing. It was a, people thing, the we and me. And I gave him the buzzword, the we and me. So he actually used that. And and then he stepped up. Oh yeah, that's great. I said, let's go to the bar and have a drink and talk about this. And I got reams of paper. I got my laptop. Let's start planning. He said, oh no, I'm tired. I'm gonna go home. So he does. I call him up the next day. Oh, I'm busy. I said, busy? You can be governor. You can be senator. You can be at the very least, because in Roanoke there was a big hole for who was going to be mayor, right? Nobody, and it was taken away, right? And this group of usual suspects were going on about trying to develop an alternative party, the alternative Democratic Party, right? And Mark was the real politico Democrat guy. He was in the Democratic Party in the planning group, and I was tacitly in it because I always had these insights that people, wow, I never thought of that. So Mark and I were the dynamic duo, and we had so much fun. We would go to these events, and he would be looking like the political operative, the suit and all of that, or a nice sports shirt, and a nice jacket, and I would look like the homeless guy. And he would set it up with the TV guy, and I would just kind of stumble into the frame, and the people were like, "Oh, what are we going to do with this guy?" Until they realized, we did that so many times that every news person in the state realized we were setting them up, because then I would talk like the college professor and come up with the questions that they're not asking. So why aren't you saying this? Why aren't you saying this? Who owns you? Where you get your money? Why you do? And they were humming, and then I would step out of frame, and Mark would step in as the political guy, and then he would answer the questions. So the other guy couldn't even. He was going humming, and so we were the dynamic duo, and we had so much fun together. We just kept doing it and just laughing and just and that was one thing that got me a little FaceTime. And so I've been here 20 years pretty much, and I've helped every group, not just the Democrats or the Republicans. I mean, when I saw the Tea Party coming together, I went and helped them organize, because I had no political, belief. These people were good people. Yes, Hillary called them a basket of deplorables, but they weren't. They were hardworking folk. And the fact that I would come and be there, and they thought I was this, and then I wasn't, and I supported them and helped them and gave them strategy, they were like, whoa. And then that's when the money people came in. That's when the Coke people came in. And they, I was doing just this kind of organizing and strategizing on the side of the road where these people were just, and the Coke people had money, so they would rent the ballroom at the Holiday Inn, and they would have a bar in the back, and the open little, things with the hot dogs in the blankets, and anyone could come in and listen to them, and then they would listen to the audience, and I would take notes, and I would go talk to the operatives about what it was. And they go, so you're an operative too? And I said, who's paying you? I said, no, I'm a itinerant scholar. This, I give my rap about how Roanoke was a microcosm, and and yes, I do get employed by entities, and I do give people a 411. And yes, if you want to pay me a lot of money, I'll do the same for you. But right now, I'm just interested in understanding this movement and what so you straight up with me, I be straight up with you. I'll never get you, So here it is 20 years later, and I can talk about it, right? And I didn't really know those guys' names because they were operatives, and they were down low operatives, meaning they worked for anybody who paid them a lot of money. Democrat, Republican, you name it, they would do it, right? And they had that edge of dark water, of CIA, NSA, because I was talking about certain strategic monologues that come out of databases and not out of ideological protocols like the Democrats and Republicans had, right? Like they would call their political platform. Anyway, so I was doing all this stuff at the same time. It was kind of pretty pretty interesting. And because I couldn't work, but I could get around. And the more I got around, the better I was, right? And, what am I going to do? Just sit around and do nothing? No. So going to these things and walking and talking and standing up and sitting down and was good for me, and that's how I got better. And so, anyway, so weeks go by. This usual suspect group is trying to put together a new alternative party, and they're talking about it. And someone would come and get me and offer to buy me dinner if I would come, and I would come. And in this church where they had it, there were two rooms, one on the street level and one where the rich people hung out. That was up a big staircase. And they wanted to be like the rich people, so they had their meetings up there. And I said, why don't we just do it on the one on the street level? I don't have, I can barely walk. You want me to go up this big staircase? And so they have two people in front of me pulling me up and push, it was, and then I'd get up there exhausted, and at least they had a couch there, and I'd fall asleep. And in my dreams, I would hear them going on. And whenever they said something interesting or stupid, I would kind of, lying there, say no, or yes, or what are you guys thinking about? Are you nuts? And, it was one of those things where they had these big, I don't know where they got them, these big pads of paper, and they were writing shit down, and then they'd throw the shit away. It was like, oh my God. Anyway, so they finally decided to have a big meeting in Roanoke's, city library. They have a big meeting room down there that fits a few hundred people. And so, somebody tells me, oh, you should be there. They're going to have this big meeting of everybody, of all the different organizations, all the blah, blah, blah. And the usual suspects are, right. And there's this one guy who's supposed to be a documenter historian. He writes nothing. And he's supposed to be he's a movie maker. I knew him 20 years. Never saw a camera in his hand, not even a brownie. And I'd be the guy taking all the pictures, all the videos, all the everything. And, and I said, so let's do this together. You've got editing. He had a nice editing suite. I said, and he never did nothing with it except show people it, right? He got it with a grant. And the woman in his life, Mary, she was really like the patron saint. She was a worker. She did amazing things. And he just hung around and posed. He was a poser. And so anyway, my friend told me this was going to happen at such and such a time. And, I like to be early. And so I got there, and I had arranged the seats. Somebody had seats like a teacher, like a blackboard up here, and then these just rows and rows of seats, right? And so I said no, So I who could barely walk, took about 200 seats and made a big, big circle around them, right? And then I went over, and there was a couch there, and I turned all the lights off and went to sleep, right? About 40 minutes later, this guy comes in, the guy who's, thinks he's hot shit historian / documenter. And he comes in. He always wanted to be college professor. So he comes in, and I'm sitting at the other end. And he's coming in from this door, from the hallway, and he has to walk across this space. And it's dark, right? And he walks across it, and he's expecting, because he had put all the chairs in rows so he could sit up there at the blackboard and be the teacher, right? And I rolled the blackboard like into the hallway, into another room, into a closet. So unless I told somebody where it was, they're never going to find this rolling blackboard. And so, I took all his props away and put them in that room. And he walks in, and he's expecting the seats to be, in rows. So he's going to walk through a row and, go to the other side of the room, turn the lights on. And so he doesn't realize that there is no row. They're all in a circle. And there's one place you come in, very, very Iroquois nation. You come in from, from the north and you go out by the south, right? So he comes in from the east and he's expecting a row to be there and he's, feeling for it. And I, who's asleep, and I'm kind of behind him on the couch, that he doesn't see me because it's dark. And I use my outside voice, Jim! And he crashes into the chairs, stumbles, they fall on top of him. He's on the floor, and I go across and I turn the lights on. And he's like splattered. All his papers are everywhere that he was going to be the teacher with, and everything's all mixed up. And he's like, what happened? I set this room up yesterday. What's this? I said, this is the Iroquois Longhouse. This is so everyone can sit in a circle and be equal, and that you won't be the teacher. You won't be the authority. And then people started walking in and sitting down. And he was on the floor with papers all over the place. So that got rid of the one Stalinist obstructionist, right? So he's having to just sit, he just pushed all his papers together, put them in the box he had and put it over there and just sat down looking dejected, right? So I sat down and, Mark came over, sat next to me on one side. And then the African-American hero came in and he sat on my other side. And then everybody kind of sat around it. And it was like those two guys were on either side of me. Everyone was looking at me as the, facilitator. And so I'm just looking around, waiting for everyone to come in. And I said, okay, we're all here, about 150 people. So it's a very interesting time. Everything's up for grabs. We could do, this. The usual suspects here have been working real hard to create a new political party. And all of you guys represent all the different alternative organizations here. So that's what I put all the seats. This is the Iroquois Longhouse. Everyone is equal. I'm no anything except the first guy who took it upon himself to welcome everyone. So welcome. Let's all take a big breath. Hold it in. See that light in your higher self and then blow it out and blow all the crap that you've just experienced all week long and let it all go. Let's do it again. Okay. So we're going to go, to my left, Mark, what do you got to say? So Mark says some interesting things, and then the next guy says some interesting things, and it goes all the way around, right? So the African hero is the last guy to speak, right? At least in that round. I said we're going to go around a number of times. First we're going to go around, everyone kind of, we all kind of know each other, but a lot of us don't know who everyone is. So everyone introduce yourself, give everyone as we go around, everyone, there's 100 and something people here. So everyone get to speak 3 minutes. And the only thing I'm going to speak from this point on, I have this little stopwatch here, and I'm just going to, if you go in, 3 minutes, I'll go, aha. And then if you go, another minute over that, I'll go, ho, ho, and if you keep going, I go next. That's all I'm going to say. I'm just a timekeeper. That's the only thing I'm going to do to facilitate. I'm not going to make my opinion, at least not to, I'll talk to anybody who wants to talk to me, but not as a person of authority. I'm just going to be the timekeeper. From this, I'm the greeter and I'm the timekeeper, right? And I'm the guy who's going to be saying prayers all along, right? Okay. So then Mark goes and another person, and everyone is very, everyone sticks to I don't even have to go aha or ho or next. Everyone's very good. And everyone's being perfect timing. They're saying amazing things within that 3 minute period. Like, if they would keep going being good, I wouldn't have said anything. If they went past 5 minutes, I'd say aha. Anyway, so it goes around. It's really great. The energy is really building. It's really a great group. And there's about 10 people from Martin, right? Martin's going to be the last in this circle. And then we'll go round and round and round. And so I said to Martin, I said, Martin, if you stand up and give the kind of speech you did at the TV station, and say that you're going to run for mayor or governor, either one, and that, I will be here to serve, to do my best, not for myself, but for you and the community. And with you, if we work together that way, we can win this and we can change the political structure of Virginia from here on in. We can have the dreams we want to have. And I basically said that. I said, say that, and you'll be governor or mayor, whichever one you want, And he says, yeah, okay, I'm preparing my speech. I said, right, okay. So, everyone's saying amazing things. He's next. And he goes, hi, I'm so-and-so, and I'm, I'm working on this, and I'm a member of the group that's trying to create the new Democratic Party, and this meeting is here to build that. And then it comes to me. And I give him like the long take like this. And I said I wasn't going to say anything, but I'm going to say, me, I'm going to say something. This guy should be governor or mayor. After that speech he did at the TV station, all of you were there. You were all crying. He is the guy. He can be the man who represents. And if we're behind him, he can win. And everyone said, yeah. And then I looked at him and he said, well, I'm still thinking about it. Let's talk some more. So it went around again, and everyone basically repeated what I said and gave their reason why they thought he would be it. Yes, you can be a jerk. Yes, you can do this, but you are the man of that moment. This is the time for you to step up. That's what everyone kind of said to him. And again, it came around to him, and he said, well, I have to think about this and talk to my wife, and I just got up and left, and people were like looking at me, and one guy said, where are you going? I said, well, I'm an old man. I got to go to the toilet. I have to like pinch a loaf. And everyone was like, meaning this guy's full of shit, right? So I went and did that. And then I spent the next 40 minutes out in the hallway where, I went out to the bathroom, and some guy came into the bathroom. I'm in the store, and he goes, I don't want to bother you, but I really want to talk to you. I'm in there pinching a loaf, and this guy goes, I've never been involved in anything, but I'm so upset about what's going on. I heard about this. And why don't you run for governor? I said, no, that's not my job. My job is to help you run for governor. He goes, but I'm just a bus driver. And I said, yeah, that's what we need for governor. Someone to drive the people to success. Anyway, I went out there and talked to him, and he started, I said, go out in the hallway and let me just wipe my butt. He says, okay, I'm sorry I interrupted. And so anyway, I washed my hands, came out, and Khalib, the guy he should be governor. And he was, his father was a big, and this other guy, this quasi hero, and Khalib, these two guys were almost, they were about the same age. Khalib's a little younger. Both their fathers were big ministers. Khalib was the dude, whereas this kid, not so much. He was always in the shadow of his daddy. But this guy was the dude. He was the next heir apparent. But he got so full of himself, he started doing this in the 80s, was doing stuff, ended up in jail, right? And embarrassed his father, blah, 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 right? While he was in jail, his dad died of a broken heart, blah, blah, blah. So that, put the little kibosh on that. But while he was in jail, he learned to be a barber, right? So when he came out, he got his barber license. And in the black community, the barbershop is like the city hall. So he found the perfect spot right in the middle of, just off the street from Henry, just 10th Street, right where everything used to be, but no more. And pretty much it was called. There's 4 different black communities. Melrose is the major road. It turns into Orange and goes into Henry and goes underneath the 420 and blah blah blah. And so it's the history of the destruction of the black community. And Roanoke had an amazing black community. a really wealthy, really prosperous, really well educated, many, many great musicians, artists, and politicians came out of Roanoke. And, the deep state in the early 1960s just bulldozed it into the ground and built a white elephant of a civic center that was built on the bones of the Black community's economic center, Henry Street. And so Khalid, he was always there for everyone. He cut everyone's hair. He talked to everyone on all the rest. And so, he was at least a little more polite to not come in and bother me while I was in the toilet. And so, he we talked in the hallway, and this kid who said, you inspired me, and I want to. And so I said, Khalid, we have to do something if our hero isn't going to step up because he's scared of a shadow. And I looked at him, and he goes, well, you know my story. But I said, that doesn't mean we can't do what needs to be done. And he goes, you're right. And so he said, well, okay, let's talk. Come to the barbershop. I said, fine. And earlier on, before this, one of the things that caused this to happen, I told the story a couple of nights ago, where this kid, black kid, who's like 11, but he was tall, he was big, you could think he was 18, right? But he was 11. And he came out of this drugstore and he had a toy gun. And the toy gun looked like a 45, but it had, by law, the front was plastic. I mean, the whole thing was plastic, but the front was orange, super screaming orange plastic that you couldn't miss. And it shot those little things with the rubber suckers, like could do target practice, but, could only shoot the thing like 10 feet. It's a little spring in there. You push it in, hit the trigger, it shoots out the little suction cup. Boing. So that's the gun. And he's got the thing in there with the suction cup. So you can see the screaming orange thing and the suction cup, which is also like blue. It's not black. That would disappear, but doesn't look like a barrel of a gun. It looks like a plastic 45 with an orange tip and a suction cup there that's blue, right? Light blue. Someone calls in. They dispatch a car. And the car usually has two guys. And the two guys, if you're in a car, one of the two people have to be a person of authority who's been there 10, 15 years as a sergeant, especially if there's a newbie out of the academy. Well, that car shows up, and that car has two guys who just graduated the academy. They both went to the academy together. They're in the car together. They have only been on the street for 2 weeks, and they you see the blue lights flashing down the road because the pharmacy had like 3 video cameras. There was a Kroger's right next to it that had like 12 video cameras. Big parking lot, super lit up. I mean, like a stadium lit. There was no shadows, no darkness. Across the street, there was a bank with about 5 cameras, and on the corner, coming this angle of this site, was a gas station with a zillion cameras, right? So there were about 25 cameras that caught this. So the kid comes out the door, and he's taking the gun out of the cardboard thing. The police car stops, and makes a lot of noise, and blue lights, and they come, and they're about 20 feet away from the kid. The kid has the cardboard thing in his hand, with a plastic wrapper, and it says toy gun, not a real gun, and he's got the toy gun with the orange thing and the rubber thing stuck in. He's got it like this, both hands with this, and they're kind of not pointing at them like this. These guys stop. Doors open. They're behind the doors, and both guys unload their 9mm, 12 bullets apiece into this kid. So he has 25 chunks of lead in his head, in his heart, in every organ. He's just a bloody mess. And the parking lot wasn't a black asphalt. It was concrete, white concrete. So when he was bleeding out, it was these super bright lights, all these video cameras, and it was amazing. And, the Channel 10 and Channel 7 got a hold of those videos like right away, like that night, and put them on the 11 o'clock news. And it was like, right? And it was so, you saw it, the cars come up, you saw, and a couple of those cameras had, microphones, so you heard the sirens, you heard right? They did not say a word. The kid just looked up. He didn't say a word. Like within 5 seconds of those cops getting their doors open, they had unloaded their guns into the kid. And he was just bleeding out. When people came out, the kid's mother, who's in the store, she comes out, screams. It was like Steven Spielberg couldn't do any better. And this was the motif behind, our hero running for mayor, right? I mean, he had, no one else was going to run. The city almost burnt to the ground, but I knew the quote unquote community policing captain. So there's a chief, there's 2 majors, and then 5 captains, and then about 12 sergeants. That's how the city police department, pyramid of power is. And this guy is a community, he's in all the communities. He talks to people. He has his own group of policemen that are in the community. He's the only guy who's avidly gone out and gotten people of color and different genders to be policemen. And so the day after that happened, he goes, "What's going on in the neighborhood?" I said, "Well, why don't you and you get the chief, right? And we will go in his car, and there's going to be a meeting at the barbershop. And, if you guys do not, represent rightly, and I'm not going to, be, I have to keep my anonymous, not my anonymous, but my not on any side guy, just a guy who wants the best for the community. I'm not going to be with you guys, but, I'll meet you guys, talk to you guys, give you the 411. You guys show up at like exactly 7:45, and because Khalid will kind of have it all ready for you to show up." He does. They do a very good job of saying, we can't just do the same old same and say we're sorry and we'll look. No, this has to change, and it's on our nickel, not yours. Just don't burn the town to the ground. So it didn't happen. Didn't burn down. The cops went back. Captain Rick did his utmost best to really make a change, and he did. He made a noticeable difference enough for the policemen. So the community that was it's unbelievable. In Roanoke, they have public housing, right? But the way it's set up, public housing is basically minimum security prison. When I worked for New York City Housing Authority, that wasn't the case. We couldn't just walk into anyone's house. We had to have a warrant or a cause, or and ask, knock on the door politely. But and we weren't like New York City police, who just had an attitude of kick in the door and shoot people, right? And in Roanoke, if you were living in public housing, first off, all the windows had bars, like you were in jail. And the police had the keys to your apartment, so they could go in anytime and search it without a warrant. Because if you're living in there, you're doing it under their rules. And it was totally surreal. I mean, it was just, so no wonder, the 8,000 people who lived in that kind of housing, who had terrible jobs and under the 8 ball, and no wonder would be a little just on edge. And, when John tells me how terrible his life is, it's like, I just want to, it's like, anyway, so it all worked out. The town did get burned to the ground, and so that happened before this meeting, but it set our hero up to be mayor or governor. He could have done it, right? Because those 150 people, they all had organizations behind them, and more than half of them were involved in Occupy, and that's, I talked to them before this. That's when someone said, hey, there's, the usual suspects are putting together this meeting thing, and I talked to a bunch of people, and so, it's because people were so disappointed with what happened to Occupy in Roanoke. They were just giving up on public service and organizing. A lot of these guys have been doing it for 10, 15, 20 years, and they say it's the same fucking thing, Everyone wants to do the right thing, and then it breaks down into these really petty little discussions, and we just have meeting after meeting after meeting where we never get anything done. And the only time that ever didn't happen was there during Occupy, and with you and with these 3 other people that we weren't even part of it. I just saw all these cars near the Unitarian Church, and I was going, I wonder what's going on in there. I stopped, I walked in, it was just at the right time. The person who organized it was like, and they did what I did. They put everyone in a circle, and they were holding a wireless microphone and trying to make it work, and I walked over to them, said, here, let me take care of this. Went over to the box where the amplifier and the receiver was. I turned it on because I didn't see the red light. I hit the little switch on the microphone that said on. I said, test, test, test. And my voice came, bah, bah. I said, well, we'll take it down a little bit. Oh, does it sound better for everyone? Yes. So, welcome home. Here we are. And, Maddie over here, she's going to take on with the meeting, and me, and I'm just happy to be here. Right? Having an overnight. Right? So she explained that this was a meeting for Occupy, and it was time for it. We had to stand up. It's not going to be like the same old same. And, we're going to start off with passing. And I said, this is just like the talking. I said, this is just like the talking stick. And we're in a circle. This is like we're in the Iroquois Longhouse. Here, Maddie. And so that's what happened. It went around in the circle. Everyone had, and she said, everyone speaks for 3 minutes. First, announce who you are, how you feel, what's going on in your heart. And this is the heart song. And she went around. And she was a sister. There were a number of sisters who were like me, shamanically bent. And we would do ceremony, for all the years of doing, we did this thing. So a really great sister, Polly, she was like, a force in nature, and she organized Earth Day for years, right? And she'd have these art festivals in the park. And, not many, the 3 other shamanic sisters and me would always help Polly, but nobody else. They would come and like have a great time and dance and da-da-da-da, and would throw any money, and I would be pretty pushy about gathering money because I'm good at that. And that's a good time to say, welcome, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland. Here it's, at Sensei Bob's Rancho Rio of comic with love and peace. And if you want to get a hold of me at the Dude Awake 42 at Gmail. Dude Awake 42 at Gmail. Dude Awake 42 at Gmail. And if you want to throw anything at PayPal, it's still working. I have to thank all the folks who have thrown things in there. But, pretty much everyone who donates. It's obviously, I have this one friend says he donates 1 hour of his labor at his job to me. And that's great, so, he works 40 hours and 1 hour goes to me. And I really, really appreciate, he's the most dependable, right? So he spares $17, right? So, because I got a house and a mortgage and taxes and family and kids and I'm on his budget, 1 hour, right? And there are a few other people who, I understand, but they do it relatively regularly, not as regularly as he does, but relatively regular, $5, Now, if everyone regularly threw in $5 to PayPal, man, I'd be in clover. But it's I magically every month, and I don't really make a big deal out of it. I don't tell you how much I need, or it's not like a telethon. I just remind you basically that it would be truly appreciated if because I have no real pillow. I always get by every month. I got no money in the bank. I got no savings for anything. My car was really in disarray coming here, and I went to the guy, who's always fixes it, and he's a big, it's a big, you corporation, so they're all computerized. I've been, who and what I am is there, and I do it because they're all over America. So if something ever goes wrong, certain things work that they do is like guaranteed. So I can not, I could be in Florida and have that thing break, and the guys who represent this, fix it. So that's why I do it with those guys. And I've been going to that one shop forever, for as long as I had that car. So, and I've read their palms and talked to them about their, they take care of me. If there's any sales on anything, they always remind me to, instead of paying $60, if you get this and this, you can get your oil change for $5, stuff like that. So, my car, I was amazingly lucky to get from the deep green to here, the 200 miles, and I got here, and I then after I was at my friend's farm for a day, I drove it down to them and said, okay, give it the once over, tell me what's needed. And they did. And they said, well, that'll be $2,800 to fix everything so your car is running really good. And I said, well, how bad is it? And I said, well, your car is actually dangerous. You have, this, my whole front end needed basically all the little gizmos, the struts and this bar and that turning elbow and whatever, all that shit need to be replaced. And my tires need to be replaced and a few other things, $2,800 worth. And I said, well, how much does the oil change cost? And they said, well, for you, $18. And I said, okay, just change the oil. And I called up a friend of mine, and he came down to see me, and he took me out to lunch to the Chinese restaurant, which is on the other side of the parking lot. So I said, you got my phone number there on your computer. When you're done, just give me a call, and I'll come by. And the guy said, no problem. So we're having lunch and talking, and he's one of the usual suspects, but more interesting because when he wasn't as, he's like me, but he's older than me. And he played football for an NFL team. Oh, and let's see if he will answer his phone so we can talk. It's the other guy that hasn't called up yet. But long story short, if this guy answers, he can tell the rest of the story, right? So let's see. Boop, boop. There he is. Let's see if he answers. What time is it? 9 o'clock. I don't know why he doesn't answer. Last 4 times I've called, he hasn't answered. So I called in the morning, called in the afternoon, called early evening, and about now.
Hi, this is Pete. Thanks for calling. Leave a message and I'll get back to you. Bye-bye.
At the tone, please record your message. When you've finished recording, you may hang up or press 1 for more options.
Pedro, where are you, brother? I've tried the last few days. I called you in the morning, in the afternoon, early evening, and about now. You never answer. What's up? You can't be that busy. You got a new girlfriend? What is it? What is it? Are you feeling okay? You're not down in the dumps. You're on top of the world. Anyway, call me right now. I'm on the good old Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob, and I'm calling you to be an invited guest to give your insights on everything that you've done in your life, because this guy's done a lot, and all the stuff we've done together, and we've done a lot of stuff together, and your insights about Roanoke. And I've been telling the audience how Roanoke is the microcosm of America. So I just wanted to get your point of view, because I trust and value everything you say, and everything. He's done a lot. He's quite an amazing guy. So, boy, message is held. All these messages is held. Anyway, so I love you, buddy. Come on, pick up the phone. I'll talk to you later. Call me back if you get this in the next hour. Call back. Okay. So since we got the phone here, let's try Kev. Let's see what he does. I thought is it this doing that? Might be the phone. My thing was going nuts.
Hi, we're not home right now. Please leave a message. Allison and Kevin.
Please enter your PIN followed by the pound key. To leave a...
Enough of that. Anthony. Well, let's try Anthony. Let's give him a call. Who is Anthony Husinger? It's not our Anthony, is it? It seems like it is. Let's see. Let's give him a call. Yep, nice his number.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. For Anthony.
Anthony, what's shaking? What's this message here about foreskin?
I know, well, I'm in bed. I didn't think I'd be up for it, but I've been dancing, listening to some good music, so here I am.
Okay. But you called people wankers and butt toilet and...
Oh, well, if you read the chat in the order, it kind of makes sense. But...
Okay.
But yeah, it's...
Let's see, I'll go up there. But see, my thing jumps a whole thingamajig instead of doing it nice and smooth. Let's see, message removed. Jane removed her message. Sensei, Kadre, you're all crazy. You're all crazy. You said you're all crazy. So we're all crazy? Yes. So what, were you out dancing? Or were you dancing at home?
Where was I?
Yeah, were you at home dancing?
But I was talking to a friend for a long time, which was really good.
Which friend?
Making some music.
Which friend?
It wasn't one of the four fishers or Lynn.
Oh.
It was another friend from Idaho.
Oh, okay. Good. Okay. Well, that's good. Okay. Anyway, so did you catch this afternoon's show? Any of that?
No, I haven't checked. I didn't get a notification for you going live this afternoon. I think A Happy Life is not edited.
Right.
No, I didn't see this one. But the one with Solanovich Jr. was just classic.
Wasn't that amazing? So yes, I love that. And Jamie Hillier, he's been going through all my old shows. I told everyone to go through them and pick up whatever they want, and he's been doing that. So he sent me he said, my God, what is this? And so I had to go look through all my old shows just to find it because, as you probably know, I don't really give any kind of name. It's whatever's in my head is what I name the show. And for the show itself, it usually makes sense, but to try and find it later on, not so much,
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
that's not possible.
right.
Yeah. Should I read the comments? Should I read what I said?
Right.
It's quite funny.
Right.
I said, "Y'all are crazy," and then I said, "Tell Moron Boy to let me in," and that's it. That's who I called the wanker, Moron Boy, not any of the cadre.
Oh, okay.
Sleepy Joe Moron Boy.
All right.
And then I said, John is Jesus Jr., so I'm just stating the obvious there.
Right.
I mean, he talks about the second coming all the time. I don't think he realizes that he is the guy.
Right. Right. Exactly.
And then I said, Anthony Foreskin here, please put your mask on and praise Satan.
So, I'm not wearing my glasses, and so your name is in really teeny letters. So I was going, is that the Anthony I know? What was Anthony? Yeah. That's why other people need to hold the wrench, not me, So, because I can't even see it, So.
Well, if Foreskin comes on here, he might be pretty angry, so
all right.
Maybe we'll get another Anthony.
So what?
What's going on up in Canada?
With the truckers,
Yeah, I haven't watched it today, but yesterday I was tuning in, and it was because I was out of Canada, and it was really good to see what's going on.
Well, tell me, because I don't really look at the news,
Well, I think yesterday they had a huge convoy from kind of one side of the country to the other. Maybe it was like the west coast to Ottawa or something.
Right.
Today they're doing like blocking all of the roads, like a peaceful way, getting emergency vehicles through and stuff like that.
Right.
I think they're blocking around Ottawa, where the capital is.
Yeah.
And like there's been such a huge turnout. Justin Trudeau standing there saying the fringe minority
right.
don't agree with what the science says and stuff like this, and it's quite scary.
But they're so obtuse that they're just reading. You can tell that all the politicians are just cardboard cutouts, and they just read the last Joe Biden news conference where guys asked him questions, right? And most things that teleprompters they read off, it's a piece of plastic, and it reflects the thing. Well, they had a gigantic screen that was like 12 feet wide and 4 foot high, and it was covered in blackness, right? and they had it so you couldn't see it, right? So they had it really close, and they had all the news guys sitting around it, and where they had the cameras shooting the news guys, they basically didn't get this black thing, monolith, in the frame, but a couple of the shots did, and one of the shots was really great because it was and was on Jimmy Dore show, and he was like just going on. Do you know Jimmy Dore?
Is he the dark journalist?
No, Jimmy Dore is a kind of jack off comedian that would play in strip mall clubs.
Oh, okay.
And then once this shit started happening, he got pissed off and started his own YouTube channel in the basement of his mother's house, and he gets close to a quarter a million people watch his show every time he puts one up. And so he does have a very good crew. So he has a technical crew. So his technical thing is down, and he has people like me and other folks like me who are watching streams and looking at what's important and then bringing it to his attention and writing things about it, and then he does his jokes about it. But anyway, so he does. So it's Jimmy Dore. So go take a look at that. You all go look at that. And and he had this one with Biden up there as last thing, and one of the cameras was shooting, the news guys, but it caught the whole screen, and the guy who's asking the question is already on the teleprompter in front of Biden. Meaning the guy asking the question was given the question to ask, and underneath was the answer.
Yeah.
And
That's ridiculous.
Biden read the question that the guy just asked him. And then you could see him like touch his ear. Someone say, "No, Mr. President, read what's underneath." Yes, it was that bad. And that's the leader of the world, So, so the people who
you've been around to see a lot of presidents, so that must be quite sad for you to see.
No, they've all been that bad. The only person who was kind of quick was Jack Kennedy, right? And that's why they shot him, because he was, his father was a criminal, mobster, dirty guy. He made all these deals with the mobsters and every other dirty guy to get Jack in. And then Jack did a 180 on them and put his brother in as attorney general. And then his brother went after the mob. It was just like The Godfather.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Did you share a dorm with that guy?
I shared a dorm with his middle son. Robert Kennedy's middle son, Joe Kennedy, was the kid in I shared a dorm with. Yes. Who kept asking me why I read books, because he wanted me to go to bed so he could jerk off. And I used to, wait, I said, okay. I'd go to bed. I'd wait there until I hear him jerking off. I said, Joe, what are you doing over there? He did it every night. He that's how dummy. I said, and after about a month or two of this, I said, I don't care if you jerk off. Go in the bathroom. It's like no big deal. You jerk off. Just, if I want to read a book all night, I'm going to fucking read a book. But I'm a Kennedy. I said, fuck that. I don't need to read books. I'm a Kennedy. It was so that's kind of the problem of the Kennedy family.
I mean, even Al Bob jerks off, I heard yesterday.
Yes, exactly.
There's nothing to be ashamed of.
Nothing to be ashamed of. There's no big thing going on here, And I don't even think about it. I don't jerk off because I'm bad. I just, it's like, I don't think about it because, I don't have enough testosterone to think about it, But man, when I did, I jerked off everywhere. I mean, I remember one time I was, I'm running a job and I got everyone working and I said, I'm horny and bored. And so I kind of went over in a corner, put my feet up, dropped my trowel and grabbed my can of Crisco and went to work. And the union rep came in. This was a union job, and I wasn't a union rep yet. And he walked in, he looked at it, I smiled at him, he turned around and walked away. And then when I saw him at the hall, he said, "We'll never talk about that ever again." And I said, "You know what that means?" And he goes, "What does that mean?" I said, "You jerk off more than I do."
You caught him red-handed.
Right, and he caught me red-handed, and he got embarrassed about it because he's probably doing it more than I am. But I was like, no problem. And when I worked out in the West on this uranium mine, and they had bunks in the stupid garage, and these guys were such dead enders that they were like shooting heroin and jacking off and drinking Jack because we were getting paid $40 an hour, and because we lived on site, We got paid $40 an hour from Sunday afternoon till Friday afternoon. That's a lot of money. 24 by 24 by 24 by 24 by 24, $40 an hour. Praise Jesus. And that was 1972. And the only job I could get before that was working at Jack in the Box, which everyone was jacking off there. And they made me into the hamburger, and that was the special sauce. And my job was to be the clown outside on the road with the sign. They put me in a Jack in the Box clown outfit, and I got paid 39 cents an hour.
Oh my God.
Yes. And all the jack off burgers I could eat. Well, I'm really not. I only could have 3. And it was Albuquerque, and in Albuquerque you were either well off or that poor, right? And it's a big city out in the desert. You have to drive everywhere. And I had no car. I didn't have a bicycle. I'd have to walk. And no one picked me up when I was hitchhiking. It was like bizarre. And one day, my boss said, you have to take that clown outfit and wash it at home. I said, what are you talking about? Well, you wash it now down here at CR. And so I decided that day never to go back to work. And I wore the clown outfit all over town.
So it's not just a John Birmingham fetish?
No.
Did he get it from you?
I never got it from me, but I was a little more, I wasn't cruising for girls. I was just making a political statement. And, and what happened was some guy stopped and said, hey, what, get a job. I said, look, I'm in a Jack in the Box outfit. He goes, you need a better job. And he gives me a card, and it was for Blue Bunny LLC Employment Agency. Right? So I has the address. I called them up. I said, hey, so what do you guys? Well, we have jobs. What do you do? And I said, I am a master electrician of all electricians. Because I have a lot of things I can do. Praise Jesus. Right? And I hear this woman say something to somebody, and she goes, can you come to our office right now? I said, praise Jesus. And I did not go down there with the clown outfit on. I put jeans and work boots and a shirt. And I went down there. And I walk in, and this lady goes, just hold on. And she gets on the phone. The electrician's here, but he looks like he's like, maybe 18. And I hear the voice in the back of, kid, come in here. I come in there, and this is Guy, and he weighs 800 pounds, and he's wearing
and he's jerking the outfit into a box.
Yes, in a Jack in the Box. No, he was wearing a blue. Back in the day, they had these things called leisure suits, polyester leisure suits, and he had a tailored polyester leisure suit, navy, crazy maroon blue, and he had his hair. He had long hair, and it was dyed marine blue. And that was Mr. Bunny.
Wow.
That was Mr. Blue Bunny. So he looks at me. He picks up this big manila envelope, and he goes, not room, go in there. There's a test in this. Take the test. So I go in there, and I open it up, and it says, State of New Mexico, master electrician's license, right? And then it had on the front page, cover page, you had to have been an electrician for 16 years and had 16, consecutive W-2 forms. And then it said you had to do this. And I said, I don't have this. Take the test. Take the test. God damn it, just take the fucking test. Okay. So I take the test, right? I hand it over to him. And it takes me about 30 minutes because it's only 100 questions. I can read. I know the answers, multiple choice. So I take the test, and he has the answer sheet. He looks and says, my God, you got a 98. I said, yeah, I know what I'm doing. And he goes, you stay right there. Don't move. He gets on the phone. Bob, I got the kid. I got the one. I got him. And And he goes, I'm going to sign him up. Right. No, he goes, sign him up. And now I'm going to send him down to Mildred, and she'll give him the Class 9 driver's license. And then I'll call you, and I'll fax you everything. And then you fax everything back. And it'll be done by 3:00. And so I go, well, okay. So he says, here, read this. I read it, and it says all kinds of stuff about, did you do this? Did you do that? Blah, I sign it, right? About 4 sheets. Then he goes, okay, here is our contract agreement shot. You sign this, you're agreeing, this is what you're going to get paid. This is what we get. So I get paid $40, $58 an hour. That's what the Gulf Mineral Oil is paying the guy, and Mr. Bunny is the guy, right? Mr. Bunny is going to get $18 an hour for 24 times 7, and I get 40, right? And along with that, what I get is a New Mexico master electrician's license. I get an LLC for that license. And I get a Class 9 driver's license, and I had no driver's license. That allows me to drive tractor trailers, tanks, you name it.
Apache helicopter.
Right, an Apache helicopter, yep. That's a Class 9 New Mexico license. And, within 2.5 hours, it's all done. And he's got this little kind of leather backpack that has, did you guys ever see in the 80s, 90s, people who tried to be cool had these things called members jackets? Do you know what a members jacket is? Well, just like it says, you're supposed to be a member of something cool. And if you go into a bar, girls are supposed, oh, he's a member. It's like being part of the Playboy Club or something, And so, and it had a member's jacket, and synthetic pretend leather, just like the pack was. But the wallet was real leather, and inside the wallet was my license and my this company I was going to work for, their ID, and this other kind of ID so I can work in like special places. And my driver's license, my Class 9 driver, all with my picture on it. And you couldn't get, and it had 2 like bank cards, a checking bank card and a savings bank card. And there was a kind of piece of paper in there that said there was $1,000 in each. And in the wallet, there were 5 Benjamins. And that $2,500 was my signing bonus. And now I had 2 plastic cards that I could use like credit cards. They each had 1,000 in it. And my paycheck would go to Mr. Bunny, and then he put the $40 an hour times, 40 hours into those accounts. He'd split them. And so at the end of the year,
still at the uranium mine?
yes. Well, no, I didn't just work in a uranium mine. I worked at Los Alamos, Sandias, Kirkland Air Force Base, and a whole bunch of other places that don't have names. And yes, so 2.5 years, I did some really interesting shit. So anyway, he goes, it's time to party. And he hands me this leather kind of thermidor thing, right? And I open it up, and it's got 4 cigars. And you know what a blunt is? A blunt is a cigar.
Just cannabis.
Well, it's a cigar with the best, the little blue hairs of the female bud. That's what a blunt.
Oh, okay.
And the tobacco is really mild and soft. So when you're smoking the cigar, you're getting totally trashed. It smells like a cigar, and it doesn't burn your throat. You don't cough. So there's 6 of these things in there with this nice old thermidor. And he goes, let's party. And so we walk out into the next room, and there's a big bar, and there are all these other people with members jackets. I mean, I wasn't the only guy to get a job. And there were girls there and guys there, and there's this girl there who's in a nurse's uniform, right? And she's got her little registered nurse's pin that, like a military thing. And her nurse.
She was a Sagittarius.
Oh, God, was she ever? And a Scorpio. And the kind of nursing outfit she was wearing was the kind you get at a sex shop,
Yeah. Okay.
Not the uniform that goes below your knee, right? Yeah. So right, and so she's there, and she's just drinking, and she's looking at me, and I'm looking at her, and it's like, let's have sex, and I haven't had sex in a long time. I've been living in this like Chicano neighborhood with this old Chicano, Indian chief guy, learning his mysteries, and not sexually, but that would be okay. But he was a definite mystic, brilliant, amazing guy. He picked me up on Interstate 25.
Was it Chief Standing Bear or something?
No, he was a very interesting guy. He was Chicano and Hopi, and
so he wasn't the North Carolina guy.
No, he wasn't the North Carolina.
Okay.
No, he wasn't a Chief Two Trees. No, and
that's it.
Yeah, and so, but he was David. And all of the great people, and I have a lot of Davids in my life, and he's one of them. And I was leaving. How I got to New Mexico because I was part of the Robert Wilson Dance Company, and he did letters to Queen Victoria and Einstein on the Beach, and if you know about dance or avant-garde crap, his name is big. And I used to work for him. I was his lighting guy, and I took care of his cousin Chris Knowles, who was autistic, and he was a savant. And both of the librettos of these operas were written by this kid. And the only way Robert was a trust fund baby, and he blew through his money real fast. And then everyone died, and the only person who could take care of Christopher was him, and he couldn't do it. So he said, "You can live in our big house, just take care of Christopher, blah, blah, blah." So I did, and Christopher was great. I mean, he was more, if you were to take, John, and then put, Mother Teresa, and the guy who's the physicist who was in the wheelchair. Right. If you put those three together, that's Chris. Right. So he was
see it clearly.
Right. He was. You're talking about the people saint. He really was a saint. Doves would land on his fingers. He was never said a mean word, and he was way more truthful. He was just stuff that came out of his mouth was. I couldn't write it fast. And if I wrote too fast, I couldn't read it. So I went and got a tape recorder and hung it. It was a voice-activated tape recorder that was, about the size of a shoebox. And I hung it around his neck. And he thought it was a great piece of jewelry. I said, "It's a piece of jewelry." It was like, a tape recorder, battery-powered tape recorder, and, rope around it. And I put like some foam so it wouldn't dig into his neck. So he'd be comfortable with it, and he loved wearing it. He'd get up in the morning. I said, "It's a piece of." I said, "It's like those guys who do." It was before rap. He goes, like those guys who on the street who do, because we used to go down to the park and watch these guys, twirl, and they called it spoken word in those days. And so that's what he.
Gil Scott Aaron or before them?
Well, Gil was before them. They came after Gil. And then the rappers came after those guys, and they were also, when they would go to these things called house parties, and they would do the spoken thing to that music, and that's how rap got started. So anyway, that's what Chris wanted to be. Wow. So I'd put that around his neck, and then I had a girlfriend, who was not the greatest singer, but she could type like a demon. So they were just coming up with. I worked for Polaroid, and they were really into computers before anybody else. But the guys in New York didn't want to go for it. So he, what he did? He passed all of that shit on. No, Xerox. It wasn't Polaroid. Xerox, and Grandpa Xerox, and. He started a thing called Xerox Park, which was the beginning of the Silicon Valley. And he wanted to be the.
Oh, you worked there, didn't you?
Yeah, exactly. And And I was close to Grandpa. The other guy, so what's his name? Mr. Bill Gates was there, and so was Mr. Apple was there. And I was
What's
a kid.
the name for Mr. Apple? Is he a sensei approved or not?
No. He was a dickhead. He was a moron. I mean, the guy who was really cool was his buddy. Who's the other guy of Apple? The kind of chunky one?
Oh, Steve Wozniak.
Yeah, Woz. Now, Woz was cool. Woz was, and he could, Woz, he was a dude. He was. Of all those guys, he was the smart one. He had it together. And I'll show you how much of a dude he was. He fucking, started Apple with and sold out and got his $1.5 billion and then just took it easy for the rest of his fucking life.
Yeah.
And then
as many Playboy nurses as he could have.
Well, no. He was actually cooler than that because he found the place he wanted to live. He set it up nice. He put his lab. He went out and found interesting people, and he mentored them in the computer world. And a lot of those people who did other things, who, Facebook bought and other people bought, they were them. And they followed his path, meaning they took their passion, they made something interesting, they sold it for $1 billion, and then did the same thing. But that is not a bad thing to do, But
yeah, did you know the guy?
Yeah, again, I was there, and I was there for not as long as they were, because I was there, and I really liked Grandpa Xerox, because I met him in New York. See, I got a gig at Xerox at the shop because I wanted certain parts that they had. And so I started tinkering with their machines. And Xerox machines are really very strange. They're like made from, an alien planet because it takes a picture, like a TV picture of that piece of paper, right? And then there's this drum that it electrically magnetizes, and the toner sticks to the magnet, and then the drum runs on the paper and puts all of that on the paper and does it within nanoseconds. And this shit was, designed in the 60s. This is like I said. So anyway, and they kept changing shit to the degree that no one could fix any of these things. And they were really messy. That toner was messy. So you have an office and you have this machine that does 8 million copies. Yeah, it's great. But then it breaks down, and what do you do with it? And so the Xerox guy would come, and they really, because things changed so much, they didn't know how to fix it. So they'd take it apart, and the toner would be everyone, and it was like dust. But once it got on you, it was like, a magic marker. It was, and it would streaks all over everything. It was a mess. And Xerox was smart enough to sell these things like a franchise. And so they weren't responsible. The franchisee guys would be responsible. I mean, Xerox was a sharp bunch of guys. They covered their ass on everything. Anyway, so a couple of people who I worked for said, we want these machines to work. I was working in a foundry, and they had these color ones. And so my boss said, these morons don't know shit about these machines. I'm giving you total permission to go take it apart, figure out how it works, and fix it, because we need it. And those morons can't do it. So I did, and I learned how to fix it. So Xerox came and got very upset because part of the contract is you don't touch this machine. And I was fixing them. And so, and the architectural ones, where the prints were like architectural prints, gigantic things. And I was using it for art. I was bending the lenses so I could make unbelievable images on this stuff. And the colored ones were amazing. So anyway, one day, the cat's out of the bag, and the main Xerox guys in New York hear about it, and Grandpa Xerox there. And so two of those high mucky mucks and Grandpa Xerox show up at this foundry where I'm working. And I've got these machines all over the place and doing all kinds of crazy shit, things that they were never designed to do. And Grandpa is looking at me going, God, kid, this is great. I want you to work for me. And so I said, sure. He says, I'm flying back to LA like tomorrow. You're on the plane. And he talks to my boss. I said, listen, I'm just going to take him for a little while. I know you need this kid. I'll send him back, but I'll send him back better. And I'm going to tell these guys to give you whatever you want and not charge you for it. And my boss said, take him away. So I spent 2 months with Grandpa, and that was my first real time in California. And it was great. He was great. He had a great house. His family was great. But I just did not like California, and didn't like any of those jerk-offs, you know?
Yeah, I was going to ask, because I hear so much of your stories on the East Coast. What about the West Coast?
And that's what people kept. So I went there, and everyone said, "Oh man, you were so cool. You're so California. You should stay here. You'll be great." Blah blah. I said, like, it was like, your fingernails on a blackboard. And there were a couple of cool, interesting people that, that's and most of them were Grandpa Xerox
Did you
buddies.
ever meet Terrence McKenna?
What was that?
Did you ever meet Terrence McKenna?
Yeah, but not to that. So I was part of the esoteric world in New York, and there was this thing on Spring Street that I helped put together. It was called The Green Door, right? There was a porno movie called it, and this lady bought this building, and she was part of Theosophical Society, right? And that was Madame Blavatsky's crew, and they had their own place in New York, and they had a great place in upstate New York called Pumpkin Hollow. So anyway, but they were like, I don't want to say straight laced, but it was their way or the highway. You know what I mean? And there's lots of different esoteric points of view, right? So that's what the Green Door was. It was a place where everyone could come and share their ideas and stuff. And it was a great place. I don't know if it was on Spring and Worcester. And Terrence McKenna went there.
Do you know a guy called Lorenzo Haggerty?
I've heard that name. What is he?
Yeah, he has the Psychedelic Salon, which is this great podcast about Terrence McKenna and Eric Davies, all of these guys who were kind of around back then.
Right.
And he was one of those guys who, I think.
Was he in New York?
He was in Texas.
Did you go through Texas? Did you go through Texas at all on your hitchhiking through America?
Well, I stepped foot in it, and that was it. I was going past it. We were in Oklahoma, I think, then, so we just stepped foot in it, and that was it.
Did you hang out in Oklahoma?
Nothing in Texas.
Did you hang out in Oklahoma?
Yeah, but my friend, his grandfather, one of his grandfathers lives at Oklahoma with his girlfriend. They have a load of hot rods. They met each other, like they fixed up hot rods, and we're into old cars, and so we stayed with those two, and they took us around, showed us the cool places, and it was a really nice energy in Oklahoma. I love the Plains Indian energy.
Yes.
Very nice place.
So Oklahoma, they have the thing called the patch, where they have their own oil patch in Oklahoma, right? And it's not being, and so there are all these teeter-totter pumps, and for 4 months, I was fixing those, because all they are this big,
like teeter-totter more than John Birmingham.
Oh yes, they are the teeter-totter, and so the thing that brings the oil up is on one end of the teeter-totter, right? So it's kind of like a pump. And so that rod goes all the way down to where the oil is, and there's a kind of thing that kind of grabs the oil, sticks it in the pot, and then it pushes up, and the oil comes up, and it causes a pressure, and the thing goes down and grabs more oil, and that's how it drops.
Yeah,
right?
I know.
Right. And they're kind of, once they get going, it's like almost, it takes very little energy for them to keep going. And that's the design of that thing, right? And there's just an electric motor, and it's a pretty big electric motor, because if there's a vacuum, lock, if a liquid in a space, and it's called a vacuum lock, it needs a lot of horsepower to like just push through it. So once it's going, not a problem. If it locks, it needs the horsepower to push through it, but otherwise it doesn't. So I spent a whole 4 months driving around that patch, which was beautiful. Like you said, that energy there. And it's so fucking different from Texas. You know? Did you make it? Did you make it into the hippies?
Well, I imagine it would be.
Right.
What are you saying?
There is one city. There's one city in Texas, which is like the hippie city. It's where all the music is.
Which one's that?
Oh, it's skipping my mind. Any one of you guys on the cadre know what I'm talking? It's the one liberal hippie.
You mean there's a big city?
It's a big city, yeah.
Like Austin?
That's it. Ding, 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 ding. You got it. Did you make it to Austin?
Yeah, a lot of guys. No. Like I said, we literally went to the border of Texas, and I stepped foot in it just because we were kind of near it.
But that's a fun town.
We were just driving past.
I mean, that's a fun town. It's like unbelievable that it's even in Texas. And Texas isn't that bad, meaning virtually 89% of the people in Texas, because I spent some time there, because the company I worked for was in Texas. It was in Houston. And so I spent a good deal of time in Houston. And the people are nice. It's just there's certain belief structures are like our way or the highway. Yeah, right. So as long as you stayed away from that, they were very nice, you know. And, you know, I had real long hair, and other, you know, guys who were that way had really long hair. I mean, they weren't that, it was like 1970. So they had gotten over the shock of it. And, you know, and so, you know, and I was a very productive worker.
Yeah, well,
so,
you know, I've been reading Peter Mount Shasta's book, and when he was a young hippie, he turned up in Mount Shasta. It's quite funny reading his stories going into this, it sounded like this logging town, and this one restaurant said no hippies allowed, and he came in and the whole room went silent, and he was so scared that he couldn't eat at the beginning his pancake because there was so much tension in his body with all these like bikers and I don't know what around him. So it sounded like a different world back then.
Yep. And, you know, like I worked on the World Trade Center as a union worker, right? I was from the IBEW. Grandpa Stoll started it, you know, so he put me there because to get your license in New York, you have to put some time in the IBEW. Anyway, so I was there, and there was 23,000 guys working on these towers, and I was the only one with long hair, right? All the rest were like, you know, they all had American flags on their hard hats and shit like that. And I had kids stickers of like Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck and things like that on my hard hat. And the only person who would eat lunch with me was the lesbian phone worker. We were like the two others of this big thing. And the interesting thing about this was, so these guys were just, you know, had their attitude. They got there because their dad was in the union, blah, blah, blah. And they were just, you know, we were all making $60 an hour in 1972. It's not a big. And I was in it, and I stayed in because the union itself was one of the last real social unions. Actually changed America to something good and gave it a social conscience and kind of ripped the population away from being slaves to the oligarchy of the you know, the rich, of the you know, the Rockefellers and that whole guys. They treated everyone like slaves, like property. And so anyway, that's the union moves good. But then it took 50 or so years for that corruption to bleed into the unions, to where the unions just became the same guys. And that's kind of why America's there is no consciousness, and there was no conscience. There is no conscience left in America. And for 50 years, the unions were, right? So I was in that union just when they still had a conscience, but most of the others, you know, 80% of the workers were just going brain dead for the money, right? But so I met all the old timers and became, their Luke Skywalker. I did, I was that socially conscious guy, and they were all in their 60s, and so I did lots of shit with them. And there was this Catholic priest who ran this thing called the Boys Athletic Fund, and the union built a gigantic building on 8th Avenue that was the only place where young men, and there was another thing called the Girls Vacation Fund, where young boys and girls could go and be safe, right? Safe from all the crap that was on the streets in the 70s. And in the summers, they had camps up near Bear Mountain where we'd take the kids and get them out of the city. And so I was really involved in that. So by doing that, I went from being an apprentice to a master journeyman, which usually takes 15 years. I did it in a year and a half. And I also became a union rep for a job. So I started out on World Trade Center, and everyone's spitting on me. And 18 months later, I am the rep. Meaning, if they have a problem, they have to come see me. And by that time,
you have a knack for this sort of thing.
Right.
I think I've discovered that.
Right. So, and by that time, I've cut my hair off and have really, shaved head. And because I'm living in a place that has lots of insects, and long hair and insects don't go together. And so they all start having long hair. And because now it's a fashion thing, right? And so, and I got it almost photographic memory, and I have this card catalog of all these guys in the union and their picture, and I'm going, you remember that guy who used to have lunch with a lesbian? Oh, yeah, that scumbag. Well, I'm that scumbag. And you're fired. And you can't, not like he's fired, but you're no longer on this job. Go back and sit on the seat. It's a timeout for you, Charlie. But if people came and asked me for something, and I said, remember that guy who had lunch with the lesbian phone worker? And they would say, I feel really bad about it. I'm really sorry, Al. I said, no problem. I'll take care of whatever you want. But so yes. And wow. I got
changed the consciousness of New York City.
That's what I was doing, yes, in the most of fun ways, right? Not like being a politician or making any big deal about anything. I was just in the right place at the right time, pretty much all the time. And then by being that, I got into NABITH and IATSE, which are the two unions for movies and Broadway theater, electrical union for that. And so I was like the triple play. I was in Local 3, IBEW, the IATSE, and NABITH. And I could still be there today. And I used to make $600 an hour when I was on a movie set.
Was this doing the list?
No. All I did was, my job was to deliver the electricity to the guys who were grips, who hung the lights and ran the wires. And I would bring the power to a distribution point where they could just plug in and turn it on. And my job was to make sure that current was always there, safe, and clean, meaning there was no buzz. And that's all I did. But it was not hard for me because I always did everything right the first time. So yes, I would spend 2 or 3 hours before people got there, got it all ready. Those guys would set up what do they call him? The cinematographer. He's in charge of the lighting, everything. And they would do, and I did nothing. I just sat there and read books, and I made $600 an hour.
Wow.
And I had to.
And did you?
What?
Did you periodically touch the live wires?
No.
Like you did when you were.
No. That was a one time. That was a one-time gig. After that, and my boss, and this is what happens. Mike, Grandpa Stoll Jr., Mike, who was like my dad, he would always lick his 2 fingers and just test for where it was with his fingers, because if the current is just going through your 2 fingers, you don't get electrocuted. You just get a little tingle. Me, I always had my wiggy, my little tester, right? And So one day he's in his 60s. He calls me up. Hey, I got to finish this job up. Can you come with me and finish this up? And I said, sure. And I haven't seen you in a while. We can go have breakfast at Maddie's and go do it and go get a drink at your bar. And so we're in this, building, and they're turning it into condos. And he's standing up, me. If I'm going to be up in the air, I get a good ladder. I make sure it's stable. I make sure nothing's around that can, if I fall, hurt. He jumps up on the deck of the cabinet, and he's just stretching his arm, and he's testing. I said, Mike, here's my weight. No. And he touches this wire, and instead of being 110, it's 480. And it blows him across the room, and he smashes into his cabinet, and a drawer comes out, and his leg goes through the drawer, and he falls over that, and it breaks his femur, his knee, and his ankle.
Oh my God.
And that was the end of him. Meaning, it didn't kill him, but he couldn't do work, so he just sat home. I mean, he had loads of money, but he couldn't do anything. And within 2 years of that, he died. Like of a broken heart.
Oh, that's awful.
I know.
So it's not the electricity that doesn't kill you. It's just being flung across the room.
Right. That's exactly it. Now, if you're dealing with high voltage like I did, so I worked on this, it was a transfer station, Con Edison transfer station. And the company I worked for, did stuff that the utility company didn't have people to do. So I was in the IBEW, and when I wasn't doing something on the World Trade Center, they would send me off to learn other things of specialness. And that's really where I really got good with transformers. And so I go in this place, and there's this union guy in there, right? And he's just fat and stupid and high up in the hierarchy, and he's drunk. And you do not play with, like 1 billion volts of electricity if you're fucking drunk, right? And he's been doing it for 30 years. He knows everything, blah, blah, blah. I'm 20 years old. I'm just a kid. Anyway, so I'm working on something, and he goes, hey, get out of the way. You're doing it too slow. I'm going to do this. And I just say, but go over there and sweep out that cabinet. And I said, but there's a sign on there that says high voltage, do not open if energized. Oh, fuck you. You're just a pussy. He gets up, walks over there, opens up the cabinet, and you can't open it when it's energized. They have like a lock, so stupid shitheads like him won't open it. Well, he jams a screwdriver in there, and it was unfreaking believable. It was like a cartoon. He gets, there were lightning bolts all over him, and he was standing straight up in the air. He weighs like 300 pounds, and his foot, there's a lightning bolt going out of his foot to the metal ceiling, and he melts. He melts.
Oh my God.
All the fat in him is just a glob on the floor. And all these alarms, and all I did was stand back. I got further and further away, and all these alarms happened, and all these people came running, and they had to turn like half of New York City off to take care of this. And the guys, there were these guys who worked there and knew this guy, and he goes, they turned to me. Did he do this? I told him the story. He is such an asshole. We told him this was going to happen to him, but he knew everything, right? And then the other guys were guys who knew me, and they said, well, this kid, he would never do anything that wasn't like procedurally correct. I mean, this guy he takes his time, he's meticulous, and they said, don't worry, kid, he got what he deserved. But that was the most amazing fucking thing I ever saw. So from that, I was really careful with high voltage. I'd be religious about it, I was like really. So I never take any of that shit for granted, and so many people do.
Did anything go near you? Like, did the electricity or did his fat go explode near you? Or
no, I was over this place about 50 yards away. And when he came out, get out of the way, you're just too slow. I'll do it. Go clean out that cabinet. And he handed me and I said, no, I can. The sign right there says, do not get me. And it had a yellow circle around like 10 feet away from the door saying, do not even walk close to this thing if this door, if it's energized. It had a light saying energized. And that light had no wires to it, meaning the current force EMF was so intense that it turned the light bulb on, And I worked on shit like this before. I knew all about it. It's not like I hadn't seen that shit. I mean, the people I work for wouldn't have sent me there if I didn't know exactly what that shit was. So when he said, you pussy, I'll do it. That's when I got like at least 50 yards away from him and sat, was like behind a concrete wall peering sideways. And when he jammed the screwdriver in there, I said, uh-oh. And it just went bang. And like I said, it was like a cartoon. He went straight up in the air, right? And the lightning bolt came out of his foot, went to the metal ceiling. That was the closest severe ground, and he melted.
Poor guy.
But as his co-worker said, he's a motherfucker. He got what he deserved. Again.
Did you see any more things like that?
Oh yeah, yes, many more. I'll tell you the most other gross thing. So when I was out west working for this company, when they weren't sending me, in New Mexico and Nevada, it was called Dick Powell Electric, and it was fucking amazing because it was just like it was a family thing. There was Grandpa Powell and then Dick. They were both Richards. Grandpa was Richard, and his son, Junior, who hated me calling him Junior, was Dick. That's how, don't call me Richard, I'm Dick. So I go, you're Dickness. Or I used to call him Richard Cranium, which is like dickhead, right? He never cut, and he was like,
Australians say that.
Yeah, so Australians said that. And he was so anal, he was a dickhead. So I hung out with Grandpa because he was Mr. Transformer, and that was my thing. And Dick was like, businessman and blah, blah. He always wore polyester. It's like, he had his moments where he was okay. We once did a job in Las Vegas, and we did a big neon. He was big into neon, and we did that. And he really liked the fact that I could, putting in neon is very difficult. They're glass things. You bend them just a little bit too much, they're gone, right? And so, I started doing it, and first he was doing it, and I was handing them to him. And then he said, you're pretty careful about things. Let me show you how to attach these things. So I did, and then the two of us doing the same thing, we got the job done twice as fast. And so he treated everyone like a shithead. He knew what he was paying me, so he saw me as an asset, so he was actually relatively nice. But I didn't really hang out with him. And he sent me off to do shit, right? The first 3 months, I was in the shop, doing stuff just so they could really tell that I knew what I was doing. So if they sent me off to do something, I wouldn't fuck it up. Because I'd be way far away, not just in town, but like, 100 miles away, 200 miles away. And so they sent me to a lot of stuff. But a lot of times, they sent me to things where, they're going to make $500 a day if I am on a job. They have nobody else to do it. Yes, it's not. They could use me at another place where they'd make $1,000 a day, but they didn't have anything for me to do, so they'd send me off to do that. So I worked.
Yeah.
So you see the big towers with the high tension lines on, right? And then they go into these like erector set kind of things where there are big transformers, and that's the distribution point. So, like 1 million volts will come into that. It gets broken down to other voltages and sent off to do different things, different towns, cities, industries, whatever. So that was another little specialty of mine. So he sent me off to work with this crew, and we were going to do 2 days of doing line work, and then we were going to do, the line would get at the distribution point, and we'd do that. And so, you still there? You still there, buddy? Are you still there? Oh, he dropped out. He'll have to call back. Anyway, I gotta move. A good time for me to move. Yeah, I would have been down there for the rest of the night if I didn't get up. Oh, there he is. You're back. You're back.
I'm back.
Well, it was good. I was getting in a position that I was never getting out of it unless I moved, right? When you lost the signal. So anyway, long story short, we do this one day of a line work. And I don't like heights. So these guys were morons. They were like monkeys. And they were like swinging around. They're 200 feet up in the air, and they have no safety lines. They're doing nothing by procedure. And I just stay in the truck. And so they're like throwing bolts at me and bouncing it off the truck and, trying to annoy me because I'm like, maybe 5 years to 10 years younger than these guys. They're just line junkies. And they're, meaning they shoot heroin and they swing off these things and they drink all the time. Now I'm, more, understand what's going on. Anyway, so that first day they do that and I get really annoyed and I just stay in the truck and they throw a bolt at me. What? What was that?
Like what sort of thing? Like, were they being very dangerous to themselves?
Yes. Ridiculously. I mean, no protocols, no fun. I mean, there's all kinds of things you're supposed to do. And they weren't doing anything.
So what exactly were they on the lines?
Well, the lines weren't energized. This is all new line and it's so they're not going to get electrocuted, but they don't have harnesses on. If they make one wrong move, they fall 200 feet to their death.
Okay, yeah.
And that's what I'm talking about. And I wouldn't go up there. So they were like, and then they started, I was being the gopher down below, even though I'm getting twice what they're paying. And they didn't like that. They didn't like the fact I was, not a grease. I mean, they never, I'm not the classiest dresser, but anyway. So I'm down there and they start throwing bolts at me. These bolts weigh about a pound. And they're 200 feet up there, and they're whipping them down at me like a baseball. And if they hit you in the head, you're dead. So
yeah.
I don't know if you ever seen Star Wars. They had these guys would be wearing these helmets that went way far away from their bodies, and a lot of costumiers. And what those were lineman helmets. So you wear them. So if you're brushing near high voltage, it hits the fiberglass helmet and not your head and burn your arm off. I stuck one of those things on when they were doing this, and they started bouncing off this, and it still hurt, and they could hit my leg and rip it open. So I said, fuck you, assholes. I'm sitting in the truck. So they whipped one down at the truck, and they were bouncing it off and putting dents in the hood, and, my boss was going to get upset with that. And they get one right through the windshield, and it just shatters. And luckily, it's fucking safety glass, but it's all over me. And I say, fuck that shit. I get in the truck and I drive away with the truck. So they're left out in the desert, but not too far from the motel. They were, about, 3-mile walk to the hotel. So there was a pickup truck that I was going to use to. So I wrote him a letter, said, you guys are assholes. You stay here. I'm going over to where and start working on the transformer station, right? So, and then I called my boss and I told him, exactly what happened. And he was like, okay. I said, I'm going to go over there and camp out at that station. And they're going to call them and tell them, give them the riot act, not to pick on me, not to throw bolts at the truck and this, da. And he said, okay. I'll tell them, and they won't touch you anymore. Okay, and it was totally inappropriate. I said, "What are you talking? They're morons. That's all they can. They're monkeys." And I was a little upset. And so anyway, I got in the truck, drove, 30 miles over to where that was. 2 days later, they show up and they got the cable going there. But that's the new big line. The old line is still hot, right? And there are still transformers that are hot. And so I'm doing, getting ready to do the switch over and all that kind of stuff. And I've got it into a pretty good shape. And my boss has sent this crew he just got from Mexico. And they show up and they're almost like in business suits. I mean, these guys are engineers, but man, they're linemen too. They got it down. They are super professional. I can speak a little Spanish. They can speak English. We get along great. They're really great guys. So 3 days later, and we're all ready for them because these guys showed up, and that's why he sent them there. And for them to protect me because they were like all in their 30s and 40s. And so there were 10 of those guys, 8 of the grease monkey, line junkies. Anyway, so we're doing it, and everyone's just getting along. And so it's Friday. We're going to drive back, and these guys have been working on this place, bringing the line that they had brought there to where we're just going to hook it in to this other transformer, right? But 10 feet away, that's 1 million volts of electricity. And they're not being as bad as they were, but they're still not, the Mexican guys are looking at me and stepping back. Anyway, no one dies yet. And so we have these gigantic trucks. I mean, gigantic. You've seen line trucks with the buckets, right? In your neighborhood, the electric company, right?
Oh, yeah. I know what you mean.
Right. Well, these things, because these are big towers, they're like twice as big, and they are, they're really gigantic, almost militarized kind of vehicle. Anyway, the bucket's big enough to lift them all the way up there. So that's a big, long arm. And
you can drive one of those.
Yes, because I have my Class 9 license, exactly. And so, anyway, the Mexicans and we've already bonded. We have got our truck ready. We're going to go to another. These guys are rushing because they want to get back to town, get their paycheck, go drinking, right? And we're heading for another destination to do another job. And so we have packed up. We have moved away. We haven't left yet because we have to make sure we can't leave until these guys leave. That's part of the protocol. So anyway, so we're there. We're watching them from way far away. And they're just, fucking around, just throwing shit in the truck. And the guy who has the drum, the big crane, he's up there and he's moving it around and bringing it down to lay it down on the truck. The other guy has got between his legs a big, they pull these towers up, and there's a winch on the truck that has gigantic aircraft cable. Nothing could break this cable. And they put it on a winch on something over here, and then they, lift, fulcrum the big tower up, right? So anyway, he's got the cable between his legs, totally inappropriate way of doing this, and he is feeding it onto the drum, while the other guy up in the bucket is moving the sucker around. Now, where the bucket is all made of fiberglass, you can't get electrocuted, but the joint and then the thing that goes down to the truck is metal. And so he swings it around without looking at it, and he touches that metal part to the hot wire, and the truck normally has these stanchions that go into the ground so the truck can't tip over, right? Well, these morons put them up first, even though this bucket's up there, and he turns it in such a way that it touches the super hot wire. So the only thing that is grounded is the guy on the ground with the big cable between his legs, and oh my God, the electricity cuts him in half like cheese. You know how you take a wire over cheese and you cut yourself a piece of cheese? Yeah. That's exactly what it did to this guy. And it did it in a second and a half. And one part of him fell one way and the other fell the other way. And the electricity cauterized everything. And he was still fucking alive. for about 5 seconds. So 2 parts of him were squirming around, couldn't scream because he had no real lungs, but his arms were flapping, his legs were flapping, and then he exploded.
Oh my God.
And the head Mexican guy looked at me, and I looked at him. We both shook our heads, and he said something in Spanish, and it translated to fucking moron. So, and it totally disabled the truck, and it blew out half of New Mexico.
Oh my God.
So our little radio started lighting up like crazy. Our little Motorola, highway patrol, the utility company, everybody's screaming on this radio. I said, there's been a severe accident here. I would say send everybody. And one of the Mexicans was a photographer, and we were, I didn't have my camera with it, but he took pictures of everything. Once we got cleaned and stayed, and was like, not half a mile, but at least a good 100 yards away, maybe 200 meters away. He just took out his little camera and started shooting all the inappropriate shit they did. He caught it. The 5 feet before that arm hit the high voltage, he got a picture of that. You got a picture of the thing getting hit by, and basically that high voltage line welded itself to the truck, so the guy couldn't even move it away. And then he got, the explosion, the guy getting cut in half, the guy falling on either side, the guy moving around, guy blowing up, and then the morons running around. And so when the police came and every investigative branch of the universe came, the guy just, handed him a roll of film and said, I said, just develop that. It'll tell the story quite nicely. And, we got, we had to stay there 2 more fucking days. So we had this big tarp and we put it out. We slept under the tarp. We had hammocks off the truck, and the guys had all this chicken and vegetables, and they stuffed it with that, and they wrapped it up in aluminum, and they started the engine up, and they put the aluminum covered chicken up against the manifold and let the truck run for a while to juice up all our batteries so we could have light at night, and turned it off, and we had a great dinner. You still there? You there? Well, we lost our brother. Where are my glasses? He'll call back. Oh, I still need to stand up. Okay, there we are. You here? Yeah, I'm here. You there? So anyway, those are the 2 most. You got to go to bed. Those were the 2 most gross things I ever saw.
Yeah. So that was quite the journey.
Yes,
you just took me on.
I saw, and everyone else. I'm the cadre went along for that too. I saw other accidents of sorts. I was an EMT for 3 years, and our house was where these 2 intersections crossed each other, and instead of a clover leaf, the roads just did an X across each other. So every week we responded to an accident where a tractor trailer ran over a little car. So I saw a lot of blood and guts. And that house.
Yeah, this is like this ghosts and stuff.
Yes, yeah, that was one. Yeah. So that was, that was pretty creepy. But it someone was asking me, how can you stand all this stuff? How do you have patience? Well, I basically say I've seen a lot worse. When John goes, the one thing, I can be very patient with John, but when he goes on and complains how his life is so miserable, that's the one thing that kind of gets me. Meaning, So I was a photojournalist.
I mean, he doesn't know any better.
He doesn't. He doesn't know any. He has no life experience whatsoever. Period. He's been totally sheltered. His parents have, bought and paid for everything. And the other thing that really is upsetting is how he projects. He tells me stuff about me that he has no idea about. Like he was going, well, your parents paid for this and paid. No, my parents. I was telling him a story about my mother when she died. The last 4 days of her life. She died. We brought her back to life. She was there. Then she died again. Then she was in a coma. Then she came back. And, she just kept, she was like Jack in the Box. She just kept popping up. And just when she was, she came back and she wanted to have last rites. So we're waiting for the priest. So about 10 minutes, she came back like 10 minutes too early. And we were talking. And I asked her, I said, well, Mom, this is probably the last time I'll talk to you. I have a few questions to ask. And I said, so, you lavished all of this affection and resources on all my brothers and sisters. And I always got I had to drive my sister's bike and I had to, got secondhand socks and da-da-da-da-da. And she goes, well, you were the only one who I really liked. And you're the only one who really showed any kind of gumption. And so it would look like you were going to turn out okay. And I didn't want to do what I did because I was the last one. And there was a space of about 5 years between my youngest sister, Piggy, and me. And she goes, you're really self-reliant and you're not, like my older brother, she used to call him Willie Waterworks. If he didn't get his way, he would cry and then be stubborn. Anyway, so she goes, you're the only guy of the kids who was enjoyable to hang out with. So I just hung out with you and I really wasn't your mother. I mean, yeah, I was your mom, but, and so I said, yep. And I said, but, and there were a number of things she did that she didn't have to do, would have been okay. Like my Aunt Gracie, who was her best friend, had a great apartment in New York, and it was a rent control. She paid $7 a month for an amazing place, right? And she put my name on that lease. So when she died, that was going to be in my name. And I was off in Ireland when she died, and my mom took it off and told the people who owned the building, no, you just have it back. I mean, I could still be living there today, paying $7 a month, living in New York City. And she, I said, so what was that? And I said, she died when I was 30. What was, I've already been informed. Why? And she goes, no, if you had been there, then you would have done. And she was right, because not having that was one of the things that allowed me to leave New York for good. So she did all these things that most people go, wah, wah, wah. I just wanted to know why, right? And she just said, she goes, look, you went to all these colleges and they paid you to go. If we had paid for it, we'd have to, but they paid you to go. And and that was answered a really good question for me, in the last 10 minutes of her life. And we had 4 minutes before the priest showed up, right? And so it was quite interesting. And she basically, so I said, Mom, after this, what, are you going to die? And she goes, well, maybe, or just go into a coma and then drift away. I said, no, why don't you stick around? The girls are going to show up tomorrow. And she goes, those, and these are her exact words, those cunts, fuck them. her daughters. Those cunts, fuck them.
Wow.
Yep.
What an incredible lady.
She was. It was like, I'll kill you, motherfucker. Those cunts, fuck them. But, anyway. So, and then, so the next day, she's still alive. My dad sends me off, and my sisters were supposed to show up at the West Palm Beach airport kind of around the same time. But Piggy, she had to do something, so she came 3 hours later. So my older sister showed up, and she goes, where are the others? And I said, well, they haven't arrived yet. Well, I want you to drive me back to Mom and Dad's. Well, that's a 60-mile drive. I've already drove one way 60 miles, and then she wants me to drive all the way to back because she doesn't want to wait 2 hours. And then I'll drive back and pick up Piggy and the other one. Right? So, I go, no, let's just go have a drink. And she pulled, I'm the oldest one. I'm the this, I'm the that. You do what I say. And I looked at her and said, really? Okay. Just because you're saying it, I'll do it. So I drove her back and turned around and went there. And the other one was late, so we had to wait another hour. And my sister Piggy said, no, you have to drive me. And I said, no, I did it once. I'm not going to do this trip for 6 times. No. Let's just go have a drink. And she liked to drink. So, okay, let's go have a drink. So we waited an hour. The other one showed up. And we drove home. And as we're driving home, my dad has a super duper Audi, has all the bells and whistles, and he has no idea how to use any of them. And the car, you can Bluetooth your phone to, I was driving a car like,
oh yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So
this is your dad's car. Right?
My dad's car. It's super duper Audi. And it's like a speaker. You put your foot on the thing, it goes from 0 to 140 in 60 seconds, right? And he tried to do it, nearly got in a car crash. He goes, you're going to drive this car from now on. I said, no problem, Dad. So, and then he said to me, I'm going to give you this car. You've been such a good boy. You've taken care of us for 28 years. I'm going to sign this over to you. Well, gee, thanks, Dad. And so he basically, so anyway, I'll tell you the end of the story. So we're driving back, and my sister calls on my phone, and I hit it to Bluetooth, and she's on speaker, and she goes, Mother just passed away. I was here. That's why I wanted to come back. I wanted to be by her side to comfort her. Well, my mom left the day before saying, those fucking cunts, fuck them, right? I would have loved it if my mom had come out and said, hey, cunt, fuck off, bitch, and then died. That would have been good. But
maybe she did.
She might have, and my sister was there. I don't know, right? But my sister would have been shocked. She would not have been playing that role if my mother came out from it and said that shit. And so we got back, and everybody was just, my sisters all started combing her room looking for her jewelry. My dad couldn't express his love, so how he gave his love to my mom was just buying her jewelry. So she had about $250,000 worth of diamonds and gold. And because my sisters would, is she dead yet? Is she dead yet? And so they're like combing the place. And my sister meets us at the front door. Goes, where's Mother's diamonds? What did you do with them? I said, you're not going to believe this. Go ask Dad. And what happened was my mom, for the last 3 years of her life, played that she was senile. And she always kept a roll of toilet paper because I have the same thing that she does. Her eyes will water and then turn to crust on her skin, and it's kind of uncomfortable. I have everything both my parents had. And I'm such a moron. I took care of them for 28 years. You would think I would have taken better care of myself, but no. Anyway, so what happened was my mom would take a piece of that jewelry, wrap it up in toilet paper, and my dad would throw it away because he's a triple Virgo. He's a total neat freak. So over about a 2-year period, she wrapped up, because she did it to her hearing aids. She didn't need hearing aids. She just would pretend that she was deaf so she didn't have to talk to my father. And the first time I was with them, and the guy's fitting my mom, and she doesn't really like them. She doesn't really need them. And the guy goes, and do you want insurance for these? And my guy said, no, I wouldn't. They're good, and they won't break. And I says, well, they're small. They get lost easily, and this insurance covers that. I don't need that. So these things cost $2,500 a piece. My mom, the third day she has them, rolls them up in toilet paper, and my dad throws them away. And then they can't find them, so he goes buys another pair, and the guy goes, well, do you want to get insurance this time? Nah, we don't need it. It wasn't until the third time that he goes, okay. And then my mother threw another 3 pairs away, and they stopped giving him, she can't have it. She threw about 8 pairs of hearing aids Well, my dad actually did. And she kept wrapping diamonds up in it. And one of the ladies who took care of my mother basically found one of those. She was taking the garbage out, and she found this big diamond ring.
You're romantically, passionately having sex on an Irish highway and not talking to each other. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Right, exactly. Well, that's the Irish folk. It's the Irish folk. It's all in the act. So my father, so this lady finds a diamond, brings it to me. We go to my dad. My dad goes, "Oh my God," goes and looks at my mother's, jewelry box, and that's like the last diamond. And he looks at us like, "Did you do this?" And my mother goes, "Hey, stupid, you threw all that shit away. You didn't check it. I just wrapped it up in toilet paper. You're the one who threw it away." So there the three of us were. My mother saying that to my father, and the lady and me being the witnesses, right? And I'm sure the lady was smart enough to have a tape recorder rolling when this happened. And so I said to my dad, "Listen, Dad, this one last diamond, why don't we give it to her?" Meaning the woman who's been taking care of my mother. Because my dad, instead of paying the $20 an hour that he should have been, he was paying her $7.
Yeah.
Because he could. And my mom says, "That's right. Give." And this lady's name was Timothy. And my father kept calling her nigger because he couldn't get it wrap his tongue around that a woman would be named Timothy. So we go, "Nigger." And he couldn't stop doing it. I said, "Dad, if you can't say Timothy, say T or blue or orange or something else, but not nigger." It's okay. And they go, or nigger. And this woman was like a saint. The first time he did it, she kind of looks at the three of us and goes, "Okay, all right, okay, I have to go outside." And so she goes outside into this little courtyard. You hear this scream. And I go out there. I go, "Tim, are you okay?" And she's smoking a joint. And I go, "Hey, give me a puff of that." So from that point, we became smoking buddies. But I love this. "Okay, all right, okay, I have to go outside for a moment." And my mother loved that girl because she did and my father loved her too because she was an amazing cook. Like, we interviewed all these people, and he would torture them through the interview, which he adored doing. And this was right at the OA collapse when everyone got fired and people were desperate for a job. And these people would come in with these resumes and expect $20 an hour. And he'd say, "How about $3.50?" After like tormenting them for an hour. And he would say, "I'm going to bring in some tea and cookies." And he would bring in these cookies that he made that were like, he forgot that they were ovens. So they were like briquettes. He said, "Here, have a cookie." And, I don't know how many people I had to like get between them and my father, So anyway, the four women who took care of my mother and the house were women who like were just, because I was there at the interviews, and basically they were the women. They weren't in uniforms. They were compassionate. They had a lot of experience. They knew it. And so basically my father said, "How about $3? And, they wouldn't scream at him or jump across the coffee table to try to strangle him. They would just look at him, and I'd say, "Dad, I'll take care of it from here." And we'd walk outside, and I said, "Listen, you got the job. Start at $7, and next week I'll pay you $12 an hour." And that's, I could do that. So I did that. But my father was a scumbag beyond belief. He loved, manipulating people and tormenting people. And he couldn't take it himself because that's what my mother did to him, right? She just wound him up. And so my sisters, so my mother said, give her, because this black lady, Timothy, she came at night and she would make an amazing meal for my father and us. And he loved it because when I said, we're going to hire this lady for the nighttime thing. And he said, I don't know. She's black. She smells funny. I said, Dad, don't even go there. That's no. And I said, you stay here, watch television. She's making dinner. And if you like that dinner, she's got the job. And by the way, we're paying all these women $12 an hour, or I'm leaving and you can take care of Mom all by yourself. So, yeah. So he did that. And she made this pot roast that was like unbelievable. And he goes, wow, yes, you got the job. So, but my mother was in charge, meaning all those other ladies. He was like, I don't know, she's too old to do that. My mom said, she's hired. Okay. So these ladies took care of everything. And my dad couldn't control his shit. I have everything they have. But I at least can get to the toilet before I make a mess on the floor. He would make a mess everywhere. And he wore these really baggy shorts and no underpants. And I once bought him a bunch of, Depends. I'm not wearing those things. I don't need that. He shit on everything so much that every Kmart, every public supermarket, and every Walmart had his picture with a line through it saying he can't come in. Yep. What a guy. My dad. But he had his good, he was we did loads of fun stuff, meaning he liked having a good time. He liked having fun with me. He really, I'm not going to say he didn't want to torment all those people, but he had an excuse. He had serious PTSD from incinerating everyone in Europe and then getting ready to do it to everyone in the world when he was in, so he, like I said, he took me to a above ground nuclear test when I was 6. There are all these generals and guys in white coats, and I'm this little kid in a camel's hair coat. It's like, so, that's why I have these perspectives that most people just do not fucking have, Oh, here he's back again. Okay, there you are. Anyway, it's yeah, you got to go to sleep. Yeah, so I'm going to let you go. So that's, you got a good picture of that time. And so that's why I have the perspective I do and why I have the patience I do. Just part of me has seen so much, I just don't care. Also, I know it's just going to be, it can always be worse, But again, when John has these perspectives, and like, he says things about my wife, like he knows her. Right, the one who died in my arms, or any of the other things. Oh, you shouldn't have sex with all those women. Well, I loved all those women too. Oh, not as much as that one. He says shit like that he doesn't know. It's like he doesn't realize how beyond annoying and beyond terribly disrespectful he is, because he just doesn't know. Yeah. But that's still my second wife. So I just have to.
You've handled everything that has to offer you, and then John Birmingham came around.
No, but he's nothing. I shot the Sarajevo Olympics in '84, right? And then 3 years later, I made a lot of friends there. And 3 years later, it turned into the Civil War. And then a lot of my really good friends made it back to America. And then 10, 15 years later, I went with them back to these places, these towns and homes and parts of Sarajevo that we had. Because after the Olympics, I didn't take pictures of the Olympics because every other photographer was taking. I went around through the town and talked to people and took pictures of them and then developed them and came back the next day with pictures for them. And that was a lot. So I became part of their family friends and had dinner with them. And they took me out into the country to the little towns that they were from. And I saw all of that. And I wrote stories on that and sent those pictures back to my editor. And I got a lot of, street cred for that. right? I mean, I almost got a Pulitzer Prize a couple of times for things, but
Wow.
it never quite, meaning Pulitzer Prize in American photography. I mean, yeah, they give it to other people, but I was always in the up, the top runners, and just because it didn't fit what people thought photojournalism was. And my real niche became doing like those stories and images for like textbooks, So that was really my niche.
I mean, is that the one thing that you haven't experienced? Is like, I mean, you have so many things that you've done, but I guess you're never famous, even though you were around all these famous people and did all this stuff.
I'm infamous.
That's strange to you that you're not famous.
No, it's not. I don't want. I never wanted that. There were many times I could have stepped into that, but I didn't want that because then I would be stuck there. I mean, why do I need to have famous when I have all these friends who are famous? Why do I need any of that when I'm infamous? And the people who are in power, want to talk to me and give me opportunities. And I have all the privileges and high end. Why do I live like a millionaire on $400? It's because I don't need to be rich and famous. Right?
That you'd be out of your pants and reading questions off a teleprompt.
Yes, right. Exactly. Who wants to do that? No. So I've never, I've been around all that shit, but I just don't want to do it. And like I said, there were a number of times, man, I was talking about this the other night, the whole concept that I was on with a friend of mine from New York, Jody, my buddy, I've known 50 years. We're best friends, godchildren, all his kids, had amazing fun. I have all these friends who have kids. And I was so close to them, they were like my kids. I mean, I spent a lot of time with 128 kids of my own godchildren and a whole bunch of more. And they've all grown up to be great kids. And I have a number of these kids who are like multi-zillionaires. Their parents weren't, but they grew up in these environments and they stepped into it. We were having this life and they grew up, went to a good college, met the right people, and they were around us seeing how to handle those kind of people. And so instead of being the plumber to the rich and famous, they become, Jamie Dimon's, associate,
Yeah.
And they didn't go to the same prep school, but they were given that opportunity and they had the confidence to step in and do a good job because they saw me, they saw their father, they saw their mother all doing that. And so they stepped up. So now all my friends who had kids like that, and they all have amazing jobs. They all have, big time lawyers, big time doctors, big time bankers, investment people. And they still have the good heart that they saw us all have. So they're in these positions of power trying to do the right thing. But my one friend's son, he called me up. He called me, especially when he was in London working for Barclays. He would, how do I handle this guy? Anyway, so he called me up out of the blue and says, I just closed on my new tripleplex, in the $1 billion building. And he says, it's really I got this $100 million apartment for $6 million. It's a steal. And it's like he's talked about $6 million like it was chump change in his pocket, And he goes, you got to come and stay with me. I said, baby, you need to send a Lear. I'll be there. Come on. So So I have all these kids who, a number of them are what John wanted. They're all Dawson, what is her? She was homeless little kid on the street, and her mom, they were living in a cardboard box. So I said, no, come on with me. And we put them in one of our abandoned buildings, and I taught them all how to, swing a hammer. And so her mother still has that apartment in that building because we legally took it over. And so, and we had an art school where she got exposed to theater. Then I got her into a really good New York City theater and art. And then she went from there to Hollywood, and now she's A-lister girl.
Wow.
And every time
So
she goes
any
on,
day,
what was that?
any day you could receive a huge donation to your PayPal.
Right. They just have to see it. Exactly. And that's, any day one of them will see this and go, wow, whatchamacallit, Netflix wants me to do a series. I'm just going to go grab Al and we're going to take some of these stories, So, and that's how it works for me. And I'm a man of patience. And one of the reasons that I've been stuck up here with John, it's to, test my mettle. And it's like, okay, this is going to really work. You're staying here. You're instead of getting upset and jumping up and down, you're just doing what you're supposed to be doing. You're doing these YouTubes and you're spreading this experience out into the universe. Lots of people are picking it up. Lots of people are changing their lives. You're doing the good job. Don't worry about it. So that's where I'm at. So.
Yeah. Well, I'm very grateful for it all. I mean, that sounds like a very wise thing to do for you personally and for John. But, I think for some reason maybe I did pick up on this signal around New Year's time. I just started watching you again, like consistently. And I've just been hooked ever since. And now, all going to plan. If Moron Boy wakes up, I'll be over to do something with you soon. And that wouldn't have happened.
It'll be amazing.
John, so.
Once it's like inertia. Once the ball starts moving, it'll be amazing. And we won't even know what we're doing, but every step will be perfect timing. And that's between now and then. That's your job, to be the best you can be. Do your best and have your conscious awareness of your 20 and your 360 and your conscious intent. So by the time you get here, we will be hitting on all cylinders.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah, baby. And half
on that note, I'll say goodnight.
Yeah, sweet dreams, Prince. I'll talk to you later.
Okay, thanks, Al. Bye-bye.
Yep. Boop, 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 boop. 10:46. So, you guys doing? Where are my glasses? I can't see anything. So, did you guys get anything from all of that? You have fun? Is that a good trip for you? Where are my glasses? When you lose your glasses and you can't see anything, it's hard to find your glasses. You have to jiggle things and then maybe they'll fall into place. What did I do with them? Here we go. See? Just move shit around and it falls right in your lap. And that's what life is about. Having things fall in your lap. Anthony. Thanks, Lynn. Wake up. Esoteric Alchemist. LOL. What up, Matt? This message from Esoteric Alchemist. Scary fuckers. Esoteric Alchemist. That's you, Dragon? Is anyone still left? There's 2 people left. Esoteric, you there? Yeah, so that was a long time ago. Lindsay, I could listen to Anthony all day long. Yep. Thanks, Lynn. What's up? What's up, Matt? Who's Matt? Who's Esoteric Alchemist? Well, he wasn't around for long. Okay. Yep. My pleasure, gang. So, 3 hours. That was a nice time. How about some more thumbs up? What's up? LOL. What's up, Matt? Matt is the individual who screwed everything up. Scary fuckers. So when people, esoteric, I'm not going to bop you off at this moment, but I'm going to go to sleep myself. But if you come back, you have to kind of say who you are. It'd be nice if you were Dragon. We were talking about you earlier. If you are Dragon, we miss you. And if you have anything to contribute positive to the cadre, that would be great. But if you come back and are mysterious and don't quite want to be that loving adept that everyone on the cadre is, well, maybe you should find another channel. But at this minute, I'm just going to say goodnight. I'll see you tomorrow in the morning. Okay? It was fun. Always fun with you guys. Love you dearly.